My entitled sister's demon spawn of a child destroys my $2,000 gaming setup all in one night while I was sleeping. And after I discovered the damage, I told her that she can either pay up or I would take her to court. But now she has literally blocked me on everything, saying that she will never pay for any of the damages. And I'm honestly so completely shocked by all of this that at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm a 25-year-old female, and I'm honestly at my breaking point with this one. I need outside perspective because my entire family is acting like I'm a jerk for standing my ground. So for a bit of context, I'm a student software developer and a pretty serious PC gamer in my free time. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment that I've spent years making cozy and functional. And I saved up for a long time to build my dream PC setup. Triple monitors, custom mechanical keyboard, ergonomic chairs, the works. Altogether, my rig is worth a bit over $2,000, and I take care of it as if it's a child. Last weekend, my older sister, who's 30 years old, asked if she could crash at my place for one night because her apartment was being fumigated and her husband was out of town. She has a 3-year-old who we will call Max, who is, let's just say, very spirited. I love him, but he is just a little chaos gremlin. I hesitated, but she swore she would keep an eye on him and that it would just be for one night. They show up Saturday afternoon and immediately it's clear that she wasn't kidding about Max being a handful. Within 10 minutes of arriving, he had pulled 4 books off of my shelf, thrown my houseplants on the floor, and spilled juice on my area rug. Now, I tried to stay chill. He is only 3 years old, I mean, I get it. But I asked my sister politely to please keep him out of my office where my PC setup is. Well, after I say that, she just rolls her eyes at me and goes, well, he's just exploring. He's curious. This is normal. But thankfully, she closes the office door anyways. Cut to Sunday morning and I wake up to screaming. Max had apparently woken up before his mom, managed to open the office door, and decided my setup was his new jungle gym. He pulled down one of my monitors, cracking the screen. He stuck crackers into the PC tower's ventilation slots. And no, I'm not kidding. He yanked out my keyboard's keycaps and had colored on my chair with permanent marker. But the cherry on top of all of this is that he poured apple juice into the tower itself. Like literally into it. When I tell you I went silent, I mean I went dead silent. My sister comes in, sees the damage, and just says, oh no, in this incredibly flat tone, like someone knocked over a cup of coffee. I then start freaking out, and she has the audacity to say to me, well, you should have baby-proofed the room if it was that important to you. And at this point, I just lost it on her. I told her that for one, she knew he wasn't supposed to be in there, and secondly, this is my space, not a daycare. Also, baby-proofing a $2,000 gaming setup is not a standard requirement for adults living alone. She then told me to calm down, and then she said to me, he's just a kid and stuff is replaceable. So I told her that she could replace it then. She said she didn't have the money right now, but maybe in a few months she could give me a few hundred. But I told her straight up that wasn't acceptable and that she needed to take full responsibility. She then left in a huff, and now my entire family is blowing up my phone. My mom says I'm being materialistic and should understand that my nephew didn't mean it. My dad said I should have locked the door if it was that important. And my brother actually said, why do you need 3 monitors anyways? That's kind of an overkill, don't you think? I have filed a claim with my insurance, but there is no guarantee it'll be covered since it was technically guest damage. I also told her that if she does not pay up, I will take her to court for what happened. And now I'm getting text messages from my sister demanding an apology for blaming her kid for being curious. But I told her I would drop it if she covered the cost of repairs and replacements, or at least met me halfway. And you know what? After I said that, she just blocked me. So truly, am I overreacting if I take my sister to court over this? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine that happening to my setup. I think I would lose my mind if that happened to me. Seriously, the fact that that kid poured apple juice inside the tower itself, like that's permanent damage. That's the kind of damage that's gonna take a while to figure out. The screen and the keyboard and the chair, that in and of itself for me would not be that big of a deal. But the fact that they poured apple juice into the PC tower itself, like dude, there's no way I would ever keep calm about that. And you better believe I would absolutely take her to small claims court because she admits that yes, this was her stupid kid doing that. And the original poster has it right. They should not have to baby-proof their house. Your sister should have taken you seriously and prevented her demon spawn from destroying your setup. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for demanding that she be held responsible because this situation is 100% her fault and she absolutely needs to pay up. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My husband just quit his job with no notice and no plan, and now I'm kind of panicking because at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been with my husband for over 20 years. I love him and have never doubted that he's my person. Normally, we function as a couple couple extremely well. I consider myself to be very lucky in love. But I've been working 2 jobs because it has been my goal to get totally out of debt this year. 100% of my second job income was going towards that debt. I barely have any free time at all, and I can't remember the last time I had a day free to myself. I've been on the grind hard, and our economy is only getting scarier. Well, my husband came home this week, unexpectedly stating that he quit his job. He was miserable and mistreated where he worked. I've been begging him to find something new, but you know what? I kind of wanted him to have a new job lined up first. I'm miserable where I work too, and my company is aggressively downsizing. My husband is well aware that my job security for my primary job is very thin, if not non-existent, and yet he still chose to do this. He didn't give a 2 weeks notice, and he didn't have any kind of plan for what comes next. I wanted him to get out there, yes, but not like this. I feel like I've been betrayed. I feel like I'm seeing my debt-free dreams turn up to ashes before my eyes. I can't even express to him how upset and worried I am without him going into a fit of self-deprecating tears. I haven't really been able to have a productive talk with him either. He just melts down and starts yelling about how he ruined our lives. I love him and I'm heartbroken, and I feel like I'm utterly alone in the world now because my partner stabbed me in the back, and I didn't agree to be the only provider in the family. So at this point, I'm pretty upset and I'm very scared, and I feel like he thinks that I should be more supportive since I did want him to leave where he was to begin with. What should I do? Oh man, this is a really sketchy situation because my God, your husband literally quit his job overnight. He didn't have anything else lined up. Like, I don't know about you, but I've had crappy jobs, but even in those crappy jobs, I've still tried to have something lined up. It seems like this is one of those like spur of the moment things where he's like, no, I can't take it anymore, and then he just quits on the spot. And that really is not a good idea in my opinion. So truly, I'm so sorry you're going through this, and hopefully he's able to find something soon because you do not deserve to be in this situation in the slightest. My coworker kept stealing my lunch, so I decided to get some revenge by taking a crap in my coworker's drawer. And honestly, I don't regret it, and I seriously wish I'd done it sooner. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I work in a customer service office, and this is basically cubicles stacked on top of more cubicles. The vibe isn't terrible, but there is this one guy who we will call Steve, who has this incredibly annoying habit of stealing people's food from the communal fridge. It doesn't matter if it's labeled, dated, or surrounded by aggressive post-it notes. If it's in there, he will take it. People have brought it up before, but he always just plays dumb. He'll say something like,
"Oh, I thought it was up for grabs. I didn't see a name on it."
But this guy's an absolute liar, and he knows it. The final straw was when he stole my container of homemade lasagna. Not just any lasagna, this was my mom's lasagna. The kind that takes like 6 hours to make and has more layers than a Christopher Nolan plot. I even put a note on it that says, "Do not touch, seriously." Well, the next day, the container's gone. It's washed and sitting in the sink, and Steve's breath smelled like oregano and betrayal. At that point, I'd had enough, so I decided to take the kind of revenge that would guarantee he would never mess with my food ever again. I brought in an old Tupperware I didn't care about, I double bagged it, and I made sure I was very well hydrated that morning, and I used the bottom drawer of his desk like it was my own personal porta potty, if you know what I mean. I then carefully closed it, cleaned the outside, and walked away like nothing happened. And you know what? He didn't notice right away. But by day 2, the smell was unreal. People thought something had died in the vents. Maintenance got called, and they were checking the ceiling tiles, they were crawling under the desks, and I acted concerned and even helped them look. Steve then started accusing everyone of leaving rotten food around until someone finally opened his drawer. And the scream he let out was something I will treasure forever. He ran to the bathroom gagging and took the rest of the day off. Now, was it immature? Absolutely. Do I regret it? No, not even a little bit. Ever since that day, my food has been 100% untouched. And when it comes to Steve's drawer, it still smells kind of weird. But you know what? Justice was served. And it was served warm and nasty. I'm not gonna lie, that's the grossest thing I've ever heard in my life. I mean, seriously, you could have gone to like HR or like reported them to a manager, but instead you decided to do a number 2 in a jar and just leave it in his desk? Like, dude, that is brutal. That's a little bit too much even for me, and I love a good revenge plot. Like, seriously, that is so gross. So yeah, good for you, I guess, because he didn't eat any more of your food, but also, like, maybe don't do that ever again, because that could have gotten you in a lot of trouble, and I think you got off really lucky in this situation. An entitled male Karen tried to get free food from our pizza restaurant, but thankfully, my general manager saw right through his scheme, as she put him in his place in a way that honestly was fantastic to watch. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a pizza franchise, and I had the pleasure of being a spectator to the Karen game that took place today. Mr. Karen walks into our restaurant and speaks to our general manager. He immediately starts the game with a complaint about our cheese, as he wants to know what kind of cheese we use, where we get it from, and our thawing process that we have. He even dares to ask to see the label on one of the boxes. His reasoning is that 1 in every 8 pizzas pizzas he gets from our restaurant, the cheese isn't melted right. Mr. Karen then says, "I think she's the one that made the pizza last," and then points to the only black employee we have working there. Our general manager suggests that perhaps his issue with the way the cheese melts is that the toppings are normally put on before the cheese. So she takes his order and then he leaves to go shopping, or sit in his car maybe while the pizza's made. Whatever the case, our general manager insisted on being the only one to make his pizza through every single step, stretching the dough, applying the sauce, the cheese, the toppings. She even made sure that she was the only one to cut his pizza. When he came back to his pizza, she had him check the pizza right there in front of her to see if it was cooked the way that he liked it. Without even asking who made it, he immediately said, "Give that man a raise," as he then pointed to the only male worker we had on the clock at the time. But my general manager then told him, "Oh, but he didn't make it, I did." Well, Mr. Karen then quietly took his pizza and left after hearing that. And sure, he still had to pay for the pizza, but at the end of the day, he didn't get the free food that he was hoping for. Oh man, I can see exactly what kind of person this guy is. Literally from the people he was pointing out to the person he was trying to praise for doing the pizza right. Even though, guess what? It was probably fine the first time. And the people he singled out probably had nothing to do with the other pizzas. So yeah, I love managers who step up like this and do what needs to get done so that everybody can walk away and not have to deal with this garbage. Because this guy was completely out of line. My dad keeps taking credit for my work that I'm literally doing so that he can become a deacon, as he constantly comes to me for any kind of help with his homework, practically guilt-tripping me into doing it all for him. And at this point, I'm exhausted and I have other things I want to do with my life, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents have been piling their things on me ever since I was a child, and honestly, I'm at a point where I'm genuinely over it. I'm a 22-year-old female and I'm the first daughter and child, and I've been the parentified child for as long as I can remember. I used to take care of my dad when he was blackout drunk, or memorize my younger sister's schedule, or play family therapist. I think you get the idea. I've spent my whole youth working for their businesses. They have one nail shop and 2 restaurants, and I was the one doing their paperwork and taxes. Though I'm grateful that I was able to work and at least earn some money when I turned 18, I genuinely feel sad when I think about how much I missed out in life because I had all of these responsibilities. However, the main issue is that recently my dad wants to become a deacon and enrolled in school. The only problem is that he gives me his homework and somehow expects me to do all of it. I write all of his papers, I answer all of his discussions, I make his presentations, etc. I keep up with his schedule and have to spoon feed him information about basic class stuff. My parents both guilt trip me as well, saying that, "Oh, he doesn't know better, so you should help him out." And when he does do it, he ends up just halfway doing it, which causes me to have to redo it anyways. It is his second semester, and it has gotten to the point where he never checks his class website anymore and relies on me to check everything. I'm the one doing the readings and looking at emails. When he shows up to class or does group work, he proudly claims that my work was his own. I've brought up that I'm tired and that I have things of my own to do. I'm a straight A student in college, and I'm graduating soon. This last semester is important to me. Whenever I try to tell them to do their own work, all of a sudden, I'm the burden. I'm horrible, I'm a selfish daughter, but I've spent years trying to please them, and I genuinely have nothing left to give. I'm not trying to abandon them altogether like they've accused me of, but I just want them to stop relying on me. I'm truly exhausted, and I can't even say anything because the smallest thing turns into an argument for them. No matter what I do, it truly never can be enough, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is really sketchy because your dad can probably get in a lot of trouble, and he's doing himself no favors by not even learning the material he needs to know. From what I've been able to gather, becoming a deacon in this specific religion is akin to a lot of schoolwork that you would expect from college. It's not easy and there's a lot of things that go into it, so for him to be doing this dishonestly at that, in my opinion for starters, is incredibly ironic, but also it's just completely dishonest. Wouldn't you want to know exactly what you're getting into instead of just trying to get good grades based on what your daughter does for you? I don't know, it just seems so backwards. If I was going to school to become a deacon or anything similar to that, you better believe I'm going to be working hard to make sure I'm refined for this job instead of just passing my classes, getting in the job, and then not knowing at all what I'm doing. That's not going to look good at all. People are going to know immediately that, hey, this guy probably cheated through school. And also, can't you get expelled for that kind of stuff? If it's anything like college or some kind of upper education, the second they find out that, oh, he's not doing any of his work, if he gets caught, that's going to put a really bad reputation on his record. And yeah, other schools are going to look at that and other employment opportunities are going to be like, yeah, let's pass this guy up because he's a cheater and he used his daughter. And that might even negatively affect the original poster too. I don't know. That just seems really sketchy. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would literally stop doing this and be like, no, I'm not doing your schoolwork for you. This is way too much. I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm setting a boundary. story, because I think at the bare minimum, this absolutely should be something that your dad takes care of and doesn't rely on you to actually do for him, because at that point, you might as well be the one to sign up and become a deacon. So hopefully this all works out for you, because honestly, this sounds incredibly obnoxious. Today I had one of the worst days of my life, as I not only got scammed into helping someone move apartments, but I also nearly got robbed. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that sometimes I really hate the people of the state I'm born and raised in. I've got a truck, so I've been asked more than a few times since buying it to help friends and family move things. There's also a whole story involved in buying the truck about the previous owner's ex-wife, but I'm not going to go into details about that here. Anyway, last week, the cousin of a friend, someone I'd only been acquainted with twice, suddenly asked me for help with moving stuff out of his old apartment and into his new one. He was physically disabled and needed a cane to walk. The friend of a friend told me his cousin was disabled from a bad spine injury literally around a decade prior and had finally gotten into Section 8 apartments. They kind of played up the fact that he was disabled to get my help, so I reluctantly agreed. But then the guy was actually offended when I said I'd only help him if he paid me for my time and gas. And I seriously think he thought he could get help from me for free. But this was a guy that was a cousin to someone I'm not even close to, that was also friends with someone I'm barely close to. Some of my other friends called this guy a total Gary. I'm not sure if that's some new meme or an inside joke, and I don't really care either, but I will be using the name Gary just to make things easier. So I helped Gary to move after he agreed to pay me, but he acted completely butthurt when I refused to help unless he paid me in advance. I mean, I am not dumb. I could tell this guy would have tried to weasel out of paying me if I asked for the money afterwards. So he begrudgingly gave me $100 in cash for 2 trips of getting his stuff out of storage and into his new apartment. But he totally lied about the distance we would be driving. He said 20 miles, but when I put the address into the GPS, it was more like 35. I mean, I used most of what he paid me just to put gas in my truck, because I had multiple trips of driving this guy's stuff 35 miles each way. And by the way, that was 140 miles total. And on top of that, I was doing most of the heavy lifting because Gary couldn't do any heavy lifting because of his bad back. The apartment I was helping get this stuff to was also on a 3rd floor and only accessible by stairs. So that was a lot of painful lifting. Once all the stuff was finally unloaded, Gary wanted me and the friend of a friend who introduced me to him to stick around and help him unpack and arrange everything. I tried to be nice about it, but he kept insisting and told me that I have to help him since I gouged him for cash. I then got mad and pointed out I helped him for several hours, and I honestly barely know him. If anything, I undercharged him, especially since he lied about how far we were going. Plus, he clearly didn't even want to pay me to begin with. He would have had to pay several times more if he hired professional movers. Plus, he was constantly rude to me the entire time, and I heard him call me a redneck garbage collector when he thought I wasn't listening. Then I told him what my actual job and salary is, and that I'm never going to help him with anything ever again. Gary then got really red in the face and walked out while he called me names and said he never wanted to see me ever again. I then said back the feeling was pretty mutual, and now that he's so far away, I'm probably not going to be seeing him ever again anytime soon, which I am very thankful for. I've also told my other friends about this, and they all agree Gary was completely out of line, and the friend of a friend who put me up to all of that hasn't even messaged me to apologize. I was incredibly mad after leaving and decided I was going to get some beer and just go home and get drunk. I stopped at a gas station, I got the beer, and then I noticed a taco truck down the street. So I parked at the taco truck, ordered the biggest overpriced burrito they had, and then sat in their waiting area. As I was sitting there, I noticed some random guy in a plaid shirt just casually stroll up to my truck, reach in through the window, and he literally snagged a 6-pack of my beer. And then after he did that, he just started to walk away casually with it. I then yelled at him to put the beer back right now. He stopped and looked at me like a deer in the headlights, then tried to act innocent and claimed that he was walking home with his beer. I remarked that I was the owner of the truck that he stole that beer out of, and I literally just watched him do it. I then said to put the beer back before I started to call the police. He then actually started complaining that it was just a 6-pack of beer and I could easily go buy another one, but I told him it didn't matter what it was. He was a thief and an entitled one at that, and to put the freaking beer back before I got mad. He then dropped the beer back on my seat from the window. He then gave me the middle finger all before leaving. Then someone nearby remarked that the thief was a local homeless addict who acts like that to everybody, and he had gotten his butt kicked a few times in similar incidents. Well, I went back and I immediately closed the windows and I locked the doors on my truck. I then got my burrito and I scarfed it down. And I really should have been more surprised to deal with 2 really entitled people in one day, but frankly, I'm just not anymore. Also, I will never be getting food from a place like that again because that burrito somehow wrecked my insides. And normally I can handle eating anything, but I was in and out of the bathroom all night, marking this day literally one of the worst things I've ever had to deal with in quite a while. Oh man, you had a really bad day. Like, there's no other way to put that, and I say that with as much sympathy as I can, but it really seemed like the universe on this day was like, okay, it's your turn. You get the blunt end of the stick, and there's nothing you can do about that. And I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. Like, seriously, that really sucks. And I know what you mean by having to move someone that you don't know, because I've had to do that so many times. And you hit the nail on the head. It seems like when you have a truck, everyone's like, oh yeah, you're my best friend suddenly. And even this would be so far of a stretch, it's not even funny. Like, seriously, the only people I'm ever moving with anything I have are people that I know personally, not random strangers that I know from a friend of a friend. That's stupid, and that's definitely not happening. So yeah, I think you win the award for having the worst day possible, because this sounded like an absolute nightmare. My entitled stepmom is making fun of me and bothering me, all because I won't compromise my faith, claiming that I'm just delusional and that I'm just brainwashed for the things that I believe. And at this point, I really want to move out, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So honestly, I need to give some background context, as this is going to be required to fully understand my situation. I'm a 23-year-old male, and I have an older brother who's 26, and my mom was old school Catholic, and my dad was an atheist. My brother and I were raised Catholic, and my dad never minded. When I was about 11 years old, my parents got a divorce, and my dad ended up getting custody. Well, my mom changed after the divorce. My brother and I are no contact with her, and a little while after, my brother and I started being outspoken atheists just to stick it to my mom. In reality though, my brother was just coming into his own, and the church just didn't have a place in his life, and I was the kid brother who followed his bigger brother. My dad almost instantly remarried to a woman I affectionately called the witch as a kid, because I didn't know how my dad loved her without her putting a spell on him or something like that. She was rude, elitist, she was a gold digger, and a total Karen. My dad changed too because of her. He still loved us and he tried his best with us. I mean, I will defend to the last day that he was a good father. His only flaw was his taste in women, but he never really was the same and always curtailed to his wife. As a kid, I was plagued by night terrors. I mean, I barely slept through most of middle school. Of course, my stepmother's suggestion was medication and therapy. Nothing against it, but it wasn't what I needed. I know now I have trauma relating to my mother's awful behavior, as well as her encouraging my brother to do awful things. Well, one day I was searching through some old boxes, and I found my old communion cross gifted to me. Because of the nostalgia of a time where I actually had a family, I hung it onto my wall. After that, I slept like a baby for the first time in years. That was sophomore year of high school, and I realized that I just felt safe around Catholic symbols. It's not like anything else in that time of my life was comforting me, so I started escaping my home in the local church. The congregation accepted me, and I even became an apprentice with a blacksmith who went to the church. Around the start of my junior year, I was born again Catholic. I wore a cross that I forged myself every day. Now, on their face, my father and stepmother were supportive, and if Karen wasn't around, my dad genuinely supported me. He drove me to church and stuff like that, but my stepmother would ask me not to wear a cross out when there's guests over at the house, while also giving house tours to everybody that she would want, basically to show off how nice her house was. After I decorated my room with various religious items, she stopped showing off my room, which honestly I didn't mind. She also screamed at me if I ever dared leave my Bible anywhere outside my room, while also making snide comments towards me constantly. Now, at the age of 18, I enlisted and served 5 years in the Marines. I got home and I'm crashing in my old room. That is until my brother and I can rent an apartment together and I can start college. My stepmother introduced me to a daughter of her friends. She was pretty and nice when I met her, and I could tell the two mothers were trying to get us together, so I decided to just go with it. We went on 2 dates, and while we didn't really connect, I was having fun playing civilian, so I decided to keep going. But unfortunately, the friction started in the planning of the third date over text messaging. The only day she was available was on Sunday, but I told her I was volunteering Sunday afternoon. She asked me if I could do it in the morning and try and have some kind of breakfast date, but I said that I was going to church. She said that she didn't know that I was religious, and I just replied by saying, yes, I am. And I even offered to see if she wanted to come and volunteer with me. I explained that I'm helping the church with a local fair, and local artists are selling work to raise money for the church. She was an artist, so I thought she would like it. She ended up declining, and then she stopped texting me. That was 2 days ago. And yesterday, I came back from a run to see my stepmother and this girl's mother having a brunch. I grabbed some water and had a very cordial conversation, and the topic of the third date came up, and they asked me why I wouldn't go. Now, at this point, I was confused, and I said I would go, I just had plans on Sunday, and we needed to find a new new date while also explaining what I was doing. My stepmother then said in a half-annoyed voice, "Oh, you're still doing that?" Now, I learned from an early age that I can't even engage with her, so I just said to her, "Yes, I am." And I just walked away, wanting to let my frustrations out in another way. Well, apparently the mere mention that I was still in my religious phase gave that girl some kind of problem. Well, last night she knocked on my door and asked to talk, but she barged in before I could say no. Then she started talking to me about how a girl like that comes in once a lifetime, and I shouldn't be vindictive just because she doesn't share my delusions. Now that honestly really confused me when she said that, because I was the one who was ghosted, and I never did anything to be vindictive. So I asked what she meant, and she went on one of her "my voice is calm so I'm right" rants about how I should have canceled my plans to take her out that Sunday, and that just because my church says that men can treat women however they want, it doesn't mean that I should do the same. Now at that point, I just left the room. She's impossible to fight with, and if she gets angry, then it's honestly a complete nightmare to deal with. I mean, I learned that on Christmas Eve when I was kicked out and left in the cold when I was 14 years old. After that, I haven't heard the end of it from my stepmother, saying that I just lost a girl over myth or that women don't like stuck-up men. And as per usual, my dad is staying out of it. As for the girl I was set up with, I really don't care. I mean, it's her choice, and honestly, I'm trying to ask out a childhood friend anyways. I think I was just being nice and taking her out, and also, I don't care that my family's atheist. They have every right to believe what they want. I mean, I served 5 years to protect that right, and I personally believe the worst sin one can commit is to deny someone their convictions. But it's honestly getting hard not saying something back. The rest of my family is either backing her or not getting into it. My step-aunts are sending me atheist articles and other gotcha pieces about how Sky Daddy doesn't exist. I'm literally the only member of the family that's not some kind of outspoken atheist. I mean, I'm already a black sheep for enlisting instead of going to some Ivy League college and not selling my soul to politics or business. I've asked them to stop, but my wishes are not being respected because they feel the need to reverse the brainwashing that I've apparently gone through. It's really getting annoying. I don't want to go low to no contact because I love my dad and they're apparently a package deal. Now, when it comes to my brother, he's the only one being rational and he's backing me up. He thinks the whole thing is stupid and is putting in more time looking for apartments for us so we can just leave the house. I'm not hopeful that they'll come around and accept me, but I'm not compromising my faith just because my stepfamily wants to be awful. And honestly, at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Your extended family are awful. I can't imagine coming after somebody all because of their religion. Like seriously, there's nothing wrong with someone saying, "Okay, I want to be Catholic now." Like the original poster is not hurting anybody. They're not going out of their way to attack anybody. They're just minding their own business and trying to worship and help out in the way they know how to do. It would be entirely different if this religion was causing some kind of like backlash or it was like really destructive in some kind of way. Like that would be entirely different, and I would understand the step family being like, "Okay, we got to get you out of this." But honestly, this really seems like this is a private situation, and this is something you try to follow yourself while also basically keeping it to yourself. Like, why do they care what religion you're following? Is it seriously that big of a deal where they have to get involved and assume you're brainwashed? I can't stand when people say that about anyone who's religious, by the way. That doesn't make sense to me, and honestly, like, people can make their own decisions. Just because somebody has faith in a different way than you doesn't mean they're brainwashed just because they believe it, because that argument could be flipped on all the atheists in this guy's family that are treating him like garbage. But with all things considered, in my opinion, these people do not sound like good family members. Your stepmom sounds like a piece of work, and your father's a coward for not defending you more. I mean, he was supporting you as a kid, but now he's allowing his stupid stepwife to step in and treat you like garbage, and that is not okay in my opinion, and the fact that he's letting this slide is so unacceptable. So truly, I don't blame you for keeping your faith, and hopefully when you move out and have your own place, you can finally start your own life, because your extended family sound absolutely awful, and honestly, the sooner you get away from them, the happier I truly think you are gonna be. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for asking the lady sitting next to me at a concert to stop knitting? Here's what happened. So I went to a concert tonight at a seated venue to see a folk singer. The music is relatively tame and quiet and fairly emotional, and seeing this artist is a pretty immersive musical experience. Well, at least it is for me. I was really excited to see this particular show at a seated theater where it's easier to just focus on the music. I'd venture a guess that most of the people who would go to this type of show are going because they're emotionally invested in this person's music. The show show starts and I notice the woman sitting directly next to me is knitting. I think to myself, well, that's odd, but I guess it's okay. But as the show went on, I kept finding myself so distracted by this knitting. I must have tried for a solid 30 minutes to ignore it, but the constant motion in my peripheral vision and the quiet clicking of the needles kept stealing my attention away from the show. After a while, I felt like I couldn't focus on the show at all, and all I could think about was whether I should try to politely say something or not. The woman was with a partner, and I noticed on their other side there were 2 to 3 open seats, so I finally worked up the courage to politely say something. Now, I thought the best and least disruptive way to do that was to write a note on my phone and show it to her, so that's exactly what I did. Here's what the note said. I'm sorry to ask, and I know this is probably ridiculous, but the knitting is really distracting me from enjoying the show. Would you mind either stopping or moving 1 seat over? Again, I'm so sorry. Now, I don't know. I assumed anyone who knitted in public, and especially somebody at this kind of show where it's really chill, was probably a generally chill person themselves, so I was not expecting the kind of negative reaction that followed. The woman gave me the nastiest look, let out an angry sigh, and then threw her hands up, dramatically stuffing her knitting stuff into her bag, and huffed and puffed to her partner, and then got up and completely left the show. I was so baffled by how angry she got, especially since I tried really hard to phrase this as politely as I could. I even considered that maybe there are reasons beyond my understanding why someone might not be able to sit still during a show and might need to keep their hands busy for some reason. I thought to myself, are they neurodivergent? Some kind of recovery or some other reason? So with all of that in mind, I really tried to avoid speaking up out of sensitivity. And again, it's why I included the suggestion that maybe she could just slide over instead of stopping completely. Now, I realize that knitting is definitely not the most disruptive thing a person could do at a concert, and I couldn't tell if me asking her to stop was unreasonable, and maybe I should have just sucked it up, but I thought I was polite about it, and I'm just still really shocked at how mad she got, and even more shocked that she completely left the show halfway through the set. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. You paid to go to a concert, and this lady was interrupting that. She could have been playing on her phone, she could have been talking to a friend or tapping her foot, she could have been doing any number of things that would have been really distracting from the concert that you paid for. And I really want to emphasize that a lot. You paid to be there just like everybody else, so it's really unfair that somebody else is taking away from that experience. It's like when you go to a concert and someone's holding up a sign and it's blocking your view of the concert itself. I don't know about you, but I've been on the receiving end of that, and trust me, everybody behind that person with the sign absolutely hates them. Put your sign down and get out of the way. Or when someone climbs up on someone else's shoulders in the same setting. Like seriously, get down or find another place to stand where you can see the concert. You're blocking the view for everybody else. And hey, maybe that's just me, but I honestly find all of these scenarios incredibly annoying. And here's the thing, if she was knitting during a concert that was a lot louder and had some kind of like energy behind it, then that really wouldn't be a problem. You probably would not hear the knitting at all and the clicking of the pins or anything like that. It would be completely drowned out by the music. But it sounds like this is not one of those concerts. This kind of seems like a more intimate and quiet experience, so I'm willing to bet there's some kind of like, I don't know, mutual understanding amongst audience members that you need to shut up if you're gonna be there. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong. I don't think you're the jerk, and honestly, the fact that that lady reacted in the way that she did is proof enough to me that she knew she shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for calling my fiance manipulative after she decided to come back in 6 months with an answer about whether or not she would get a prenup before we get married? Here's what happened. So my fiance and I have been together for 4 years and living together for 2. My fiance is a 28-year-old female and I'm a 31-year-old male. I'm a lawyer specializing in commercial real estate and wanted a prenup. I never thought about it until I was in a relationship, but I thought about it when we got serious and talked to her about it. I also watched some YouTube videos about men getting absolutely destroyed in divorce, and I got really scared. Now, when I talked to her about this, she was extremely angry and thought I was trying to take advantage of her, and I also did it because my parents wanted me to. They have some assets they want to pass along to me. It's not a huge amount, but it's essentially a $1 million house, which is only a 3-bed, 2-bath, but it's in an expensive city. We argued for like 6 months and I agreed to drop the prenup conversation. The reason I did was because her salary is very high and she is very hardworking. She is also very well educated with a master's degree and her family is fairly well off as well. So I just don't think she would actually try to steal my money. She also is very prideful, and after talking to her, it seems she hates the idea of agreeing to sign a prenup more out of pride than anything else. I also also accidentally told her my parents wanted it, which honestly really hurt their relationship. I got a lot of garbage from my dad, who had his money stolen by his first wife and argued with him a lot about it. I had to shut them down, and they are angry at me for not doing what they want. We are very close to the wedding, about 2 months away. We are going to a coast in Italy to do the wedding, and then suddenly my fiance hands me the prenup and tells me to get a lawyer who specializes in it to read through and sign it. The prenup had most of what I wanted, but also some of what she wanted, and it was fair to first glance. Now, I was surprised because she was very much against the prenup, and now she's okay with it. I mean, I argued with my parents about all of this, and it damaged our relationship. I then got angry and I called her manipulative, and she shot back that she wasn't okay with it initially, and it took months of therapy for her to realize why she wasn't okay with it. She said she felt like I should be okay with proposing to her with full trust that she wouldn't try to mess me over, but now that I've done that, she's okay giving me the prenup that I want. I yelled at her that she was manipulative and should have told me earlier, and she argued I wanted the prenup because I watched some stupid man on YouTube and listened to my parents over her, so she needed to see if I would take her side. I'm still angry, but technically she agreed to the prenup. We have enough time to review and sign it, but I'm just angry at the way she agreed to it. It's almost like she planned this just to test me. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, this entire situation is such a mess. First off, I do think the original poster is a complete jerk. Like seriously, this is not a good situation. First off, you actually went to your fiance and said, hey, I want a prenup. You know, the very thing that's a great way to start off your marriage. Nothing quite like getting married and saying, hey, I don't trust you. You want to have a prenup? And you only wanted that because you watched a YouTube video and you listened to your stupid parents. You let YouTube and your parents get in the way of your future marriage. Like seriously, I don't think you're ready for marriage, and your fiance deserves a lot better than you. I'm just gonna say that outright. So with all that in mind, with all the things you lined up and how aggressive you were about her getting a prenup with you, after 6 months, she finally figured it out and said, okay, let's get a prenup. But then when she gives you the paperwork, you have the audacity to turn this around and be like, oh my gosh, you're so manipulative. How could you do this to me? Like, what are you talking about? This is literally what you wanted, right? Your paranoid self assumed that she was gonna try and mess you over at the end of the day. And now that she's actually doing what you want her to do, after 6 months of going to therapy to figure this out, you're now gonna get angry at her and be like, wow, I can't believe you would do this to me. Like, that is honestly the definition of insanity. She is literally doing exactly what you want, and it's still not good enough. So truly, with all things considered, I definitely think the original poster is a jerk. The way you went about this was so wrong, and it put your fiance in an awful position. Am I the jerk for telling my friend's girlfriend to stop trying to give me a reading with her tarot cards? Here's what happened. So my best friend has a girlfriend who is super weird, not just in the way she acts, but her whole personality as well. She believes in tarot cards, reading somebody's palms, crystal energy, and all that sort of crazy stuff. He started to bring her to group meetings, and she seemed like a relatively chill person. She was just chatting and smoking a little bit and stuff like that. Well, one time when I was at my best friend's house though, she started to ask me what my zodiac sign is, while also telling me what crystals match my energy. There was another time when one of our other friends was going through a breakup, and she just straight up said to him, I guess that's what happens when a Virgo dates an Aries. It's just my personal opinion that anyone who believes in this stuff probably has some screws loose up there, but I didn't say anything because that's his girlfriend. But she started to talk about this stuff more and more. I invited my best friend round to my house one day, and when he arrived, his girlfriend was there too. I wasn't rude or anything, but also wasn't super friendly to her because I didn't even invite her over. For a while, we were watching a movie, that is, until she pulled out a pack of those tarot cards. She started telling me that she wanted to give me a reading, so I said no thank you because I wasn't interested. But she started pushing, saying that she just wants to see what my reading comes out as. I think the fact that this was in my house and that I had not even invited her in the first place made me fly off the handle. I ended up saying to her in a loud voice, I have a reading for you. Stop with this garbage and get real. She asked if I was being serious, and my best friend thought I was joking, but I kept a straight face and I said that I wasn't, and that I was fed up with all this psycho garbage. His girlfriend started crying and calling me names, and my best friend called me a jerk before leaving. A few other friends that know us all have literally agreed with me, saying that she tries to push that garbage on everybody, and they're all fed up with it as well. But some others say that I should have just let her do it, just to get it over and done with. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I honestly think everybody kinda sucks here. Let's go through the list real quick. For starters, I think the way you reacted to this situation was so out of line. fine. Like, there's no reason to act like that and freak out just because you don't like the fact that someone's into tarot cards. Which, by the way, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, but if someone believes in that stuff and it makes them happy, then go for it. It's literally harmless and it doesn't hurt me. So your reaction to her being like, hey, can I give you a reading or something like that, or whatever you do with tarot cards, that was so inappropriate. That was really rude. You've got to remember, that's your best friend's girlfriend. He does love her, and I think to a certain extent, there should be some semblance of mutual respect between you and his girlfriend, even if you don't see eye to eye, or even if it's over something so mundane as this. But on the other hand, the girlfriend absolutely stepped over the line. She clearly went out of her way to try and get a reading, and she's apparently been doing this to literally everybody. This is not an isolated incident. She's been doing this to everybody, and it's getting annoying. And like, here's the thing, don't get me wrong. If you believe in zodiac signs and crystals and tarot cards and reading of the palms and stuff like that, then go for it. You're not hurting me, you're not hurting people around you. And even though I don't believe in that stuff, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to practice that on your own. But when you start pushing your beliefs or your practices on other people, almost demanding that they participate in the things that you're doing, that in my opinion is where you absolutely cross a line. And at that point, it's no longer something that you believe in, that you enjoy. And in that instance, it becomes super annoying. Like, I can understand why everybody would be getting frustrated at this lady and the fact that she's trying to get a reading on everybody around her. Like, that's really weird and that's really intrusive. Like, I don't know about you, but honestly, I wouldn't want to have to deal with that either. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be apologizing to my best friend here. I'd be saying, hey, I'm really sorry about freaking out, but this stuff really bothers me. And then I would see if I could mend the relationship in some kind of way. But hopefully this can all blow over and everybody can just calm down, because the reaction from the original poster, as well as the pushy nature of this girlfriend, was overall completely out of line. An entitled Karen tries to steal my tires from my car, demanding that the auto shop put them on her car. And I am truly still blown away by this interaction, and I can't believe she actually tried this. Here's what happened. It's almost snow season here, and I booked an appointment to have my tires swapped today a month ago. The first snow is forecasted for Wednesday morning, so I knew it would be busy when I got there. But in reality, it was actually chaos. I checked my vehicle in after about 15 minutes in line, and was thinking that they were moving pretty quickly for it to be that short, given that they had so many vehicles. There were even some parked on the grass as well, and I had to park a quarter mile down the road and walk up to the store just to get here. For the next hour, I waited and got to hear the poor employees get screamed at over and over again by walk-in customers with no appointments who thought that they should get their tires immediately. But the last one honestly really took the cake. She'd been staring through the big windows at the shop the whole time she was in line. She was told that she had two choices: make an appointment for next Monday and come back, or leave her vehicle and they'd get it done in the order it came in after those with appointments. So she'd probably need to come back in about 8 hours. She started freaking out, screaming and cussing that she needed her tires now and didn't care who was in front of her because she was the first one in line right now. The employees patiently and kindly explained her options again and that they were booked solid for a week. She never even looked at him, but she just cut him off, yelling at him to give her the tires in the back of the little black SUV they just rolled out. I checked over my shoulder and sure enough, they had just finished up my Land Rover. The employee kept trying to tell her that my tires are mine and that they have plenty of tires. They only have 4 bays to work with. This entitled Karen then said the following: well, that SUV is off the lift, so just put mine on it and give me the tires that you put in the back of it. It's really simple. Are you an idiot or something? When she said that, the employee just started blinking. They tried to start saying something, but I decided to cut in. I said to this entitled Karen, hey, that's my vehicle. Those are my tires. I own them. Are you suggesting he steal my all-terrain tires that suck in the snow and have them put on your car? They won't even fit, lady. She looked at me and said, tires are tires. I don't care. I said to her, well then drive off with the ones you have and leave everyone in here alone. At this point, she started whining like a toddler. She said to me, but they're not snow tires. I need snow tires. And at this point, I just lost it. I was laughing so hard. If she really wanted snow tires, then the ones I had are not it. Like seriously, I had them taken off so that I could have my snow tires for the winter. I said to her, seriously, just make an appointment like the rest of us did, and you'll have the tires that fit. But once she started to yell again, I stopped her and I said, no, stop yelling at people and go book it online. I then stood up, and I don't think I'm exactly intimidating as a 5'6", 49-year-old woman, but honestly, it worked because she ended up leaving, and several others in line followed her out. And to be completely honest, I felt a little bit bad about it. I looked at the employee and I said, I'm sorry you lost business there, but is my vehicle done, and at this point, the employee is just busting up laughing, but not even trying to hide it. Apparently, everyone that left had been in earlier yelling at them too, so he didn't mind the fact that I put somebody in their place. I still don't understand what her thought process was in the whole thing. Well, someone said as I was leaving that this entitled Karen also left her car parked in the middle of the right-hand traffic lane on the busy highway, right in front of this place. But overall, a big shout out to that employee for never losing his cool at all. I can only imagine what his day was like already by the time she started in, based on just the time I was there. Because truly, that entitled Karen was completely out of line. And I can't imagine being that delusional that you seriously think that you're entitled to other people's property. Wow, that entitled Karen seriously did not even know what she was doing. She saw the tires in the back of this original poster's car, and she thought to herself, perfect, put those tires on my car. I want those. I want to get those and get out of here. Like, seriously, lady, you don't even know what you're trying to get. Like, those tires are not going to serve you well in the middle of the winter. I mean, they're not even snow tires, which basically means this lady was kind of in a roundabout way trying to steal. And also, why couldn't she just make an appointment and leave it at that? Like, I get it, you didn't plan ahead. You didn't do what you needed to do just to get stuff done. And trust me, we've all been there. But that is nobody else's fault except for yourself. Just be an adult, take responsibility, and move along. Nobody wants to hear about you complaining and screaming all because you're too dumb to figure things out. And also, for the original poster, the fact that they stood up and put this lady in her place was honestly astounding. She also had a ton of guts to do that in front of so many people. I know if I was in that situation, I probably would have been a little bit sheepish and at least stayed in the background to see how it all played out. But this original poster was not playing. And hopefully the next time this entitled Karen decides to act up in public, she thinks back to this situation and decides to act like an adult instead. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My adopted brother feels as though the family doesn't love him, and despite having so many talks with him and trying to encourage him to come back into our lives, me and the rest of my siblings have now discovered how awful my parents have been to my brother, and we're now at a loss and we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my parents have 5 kids. My sister is 27 years old, my older brother is 26 years old, and then me, my twin, and our adopted brother are all 23. And for the sake of this story, my adopted brother's name will be John. John is not his real name. John was adopted when his biological parents, who were close friends with our parents, passed away when he was a few months old. So this has been a slowly building thing for years now, but really got called to everyone's attention in the past 5 years. I remember growing up with John normally as any sibling would, and all of our siblings would say the same thing. We played, we fought, we made up, we broke our parents' stuff, etc. But the past 5 years have been somewhat strange. At first, we thought it was just John being John, but now after I've spoken with him, we've discovered it was more than what we thought. First off, John left the day he turned 18, which was a surprise because he had good grades and everyone assumed he would go to college like the rest of us. He graduated 1 semester early and left the house on his 18th birthday, which was a shock to everybody. He earned money doing chore work for our dad and uncles and had bought his own car and apparently saved up enough to get an apartment. It was weird and my parents were sad, but more than that, they were proud and happy for him. My dad offered John money to help him start out his life on his own, but John refused and said that he would be fine. My parents were insanely proud of John. They're not typically the type of people to brag about their kids, but they were telling everyone how independent and responsible and mature and fearless John was. Now, it's important to know that us siblings were always fairly close. I cried the first night John was gone, and I wanted my dad to figure out a way to make him come back because I was scared he would pass away or something like that. So, when the communication suddenly was almost nothing, it was incredibly weird and we really missed him. But our parents said he was busy working and taking care of himself, and that when he'd settled down and figured things out, he would be back to his normal self. Unfortunately, it never really happened though, and overall, he just stopped talking to them. He would talk to us about birthdays and holidays, but even then, it was strange. He always tried to meet up with siblings for dinner or drinks on birthdays. He would always visit our parents very quickly on their birthdays and Mother's Days or Father's Days, and on Christmas and Thanksgiving. I mean, he was in and out incredibly quickly. For example, our older brother was the only one there for our mom's most recent birthday, and he said that John was very clinical, and it felt more like a soldier who was paying respect to a commanding officer than anyone visiting their parents. One thing about this that stood out was that John talked to our mom and dad and brother about a lot going on in his life. Apparently, he's got a girlfriend boyfriend and just got a dog and has a great new job in construction. No one knew any of this, and Dad cracked a joke about how they were terrible parents because how could they not know anything that was going on in one of their kids' lives? After John left, our mom looked sad, and when our older brother asked her what was wrong, she said that it felt like John didn't want to be around her, while also saying that she missed him, all before refusing to say anything more about it. So our older brother started a group chat with everyone but John to ask about if any of us had noticed anything wrong with him. We'd all talked about how distant he'd been over the years, but we really never had a talk like this. At the end of it, we all arranged to meet up with John and try and talk to him to make sure everything was okay. Now, it took some effort to get him to open up, but he finally did, and what he said has really rocked our family. He said that I'm not their real son. We all immediately tried to reassure him that Mom and Dad love him and that we do as well, but he had all these stories about how Mom and Dad treated him differently. There were lots of examples. Things like our older brother would hug or kiss Mom on the cheek, but she would push John off if he tried to do the same. Dad would happily talk sports with anyone, but would be short with John if anything came up. Our grandparents were never excited to see him. Aunts and uncles were not interested in him or his hobbies, or even what was going on at school. Another incident is when Dad asked each boy to go on a hunting trip and never asked John until they were leaving, and when he finally did ask, you could tell Dad was annoyed. And my brothers did confirm this one, because they thought it was weird with how Dad was acting. When John said that he was fine with not going, they said that Dad looked happy about that. John would ask for help with schoolwork, but Mom and Dad would say that they were tired, or just tell him to ask teachers, but would instead stay up with the rest of us anytime we wanted. I think you get the idea. There was a lot of stuff, and enough of us witnessed it that we didn't think he was misremembering things or making them up. John wasn't bitter or angry about this. He said he understood that they wouldn't be able to love him the same way they loved us, and that it would be inhuman of him to ask that of them, which honestly broke my heart. He said he refused the money from Dad because he would have felt badly about him using it on himself instead of Dad using it on his real children, as John put it. He said he will always love them and respect them and be grateful for their sacrifices for raising him, but also that it was too painful to be around them for too long because he knew they couldn't be what he wanted and that he couldn't be what they wanted. Our oldest sister was impassioned by this and told my parents all about it, and honestly, it was a nightmare. My mom was crying, my dad was punching a wall. They were both ashamed and hurt and insisted that they love him just as much as they do the rest of us. Now that John knows that our parents know, he's upset and is apprehensive about coming around, which is completely understandable. We love our brother and our parents love him too, and we all miss him so much, and it's honestly left us really feeling down, and we're not sure how to fix this. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update they'd like to share. Here's what they had to say. Well, in terms of an update, the first people I really wanted to talk to were my parents. I didn't share everything John shared with us in the thread I made, but there were so many things they'd done that were just downright cruel. This conversation was fairly quiet and extremely emotional, and I only wrote adopted brother in my post because I wanted to communicate the dynamic with people reading this, but in my heart he is just my brother. So when I detailed the things John remembered, I began to cry, and it hurt even more because I almost wanted my parents to deny it. I wanted them to be sure that they would never do anything so mean, and that maybe John was remembering things wrong, but they never denied anything though. When specific instances arose, you could see them turn their heads or their eyes away in shame. They'd get up in pace or put their heads down. They never denied a single thing. When I asked them, most time they'd say that they didn't realize they were doing something or that they were just too careless. They kept saying that there was no excuse for any of it. I then asked my dad specifically about the fishing trip that he didn't invite John on. He said that he asked the other boys, but it just never crossed his mind to go out of his way and ask John. I asked them both why they didn't help him with his homework or make sure that their 18-year-old leaving had a solid plan and would be safe, and I never got a response to that either. I asked my mom about why she pushed John off of her when he tried to be affectionate towards her, and her response is one that honestly really leaves me at a loss. She was very honest and said that in her mind, she could not ignore the fact that he was a mature male who was not biologically related. She said it felt no different having my other brothers hug and kiss her as babies as it would today, but that around the time that John went through puberty, she couldn't see him as one of her babies anymore. She said her instinct then became to protect her daughters just in case. She said it was hard and she wasn't happy about it, but she'd rather have protected us and gone too far to John's detriment instead of being lackadaisical to our detriment. She said when John left, she felt relieved. After talking with them, I spoke with my older sister, who was still very angry, which is the same way our other siblings felt as well. All of us siblings love him and want him back in our lives like before. We don't want to lose him. I reached out to John, and it was a bittersweet conversation to have. We were both happy to be talking to each other. We still had our inside jokes and things like that, and we can hang out like nothing ever happened. But when we spoke about reestablishing our old relationship, he said that it would be difficult. He said he would love to be my brother, but that he feels gross around us girls because of mom, and that he feels less than when he's around our brothers. He said that loneliness sucks, but that it's better than feeling like people would rather not have you around. He said he felt like a family friend that everyone liked, but who stuck around way too long. We both ended up crying, and it was very ugly. But in the end, we at least decided that we would try to be siblings. Wow, the parents in this story suck. Like seriously, 100% suck. They treated this kid like garbage all because it wasn't theirs. Like they very obviously and blatantly did that, and you can tell how guilty they were simply because they didn't deny any of the things that they did. The dad never considered him one of his sons, and the mom was almost just as bad, if not worse. She seriously thought that her adopted son would somehow eventually do sketchy things to her daughter. And I think you catch my drift of what I'm trying to say. And that is honestly so disgusting. How on earth could you treat your adopted son like that and label him as something that he hasn't done and wouldn't do? Like seriously, she especially should be ashamed of herself. That is so disgusting, it really just blows my mind. I can't imagine calling yourself somebody's mother while also being like, yes, but stay at an arm's length. Also, don't hug me or touch my daughters. Like seriously, you're trying to fix a non-problem. It would be different if John exhibited some kind of like creepy behavior towards his sisters. And by the way, those are his sisters even though he's adopted. This awful mother just assumed, oh man, he could do that one day, so I'm just gonna push him away and label him as this. Like seriously, what a terrible mother. And in my opinion, those tears that she shed are absolutely crocodile tears. That also doesn't excuse the way the father acted too, by the way. He intentionally left his son out and acted like it was a burden just to be around him and help him with his homework or take him on any kind of like trip with his other brothers. Like I cannot imagine growing up in that kind of environment and seeing firsthand that yeah, my parents don't like me. They hate me because I'm not directly their son. And that seriously had to be absolutely heartbreaking. So with all that in mind, I don't blame John for moving out and moving on with his life. I mean seriously, with all the things that this guy went through, I don't blame him for saying, you know what, I don't need these people. I don't need to be treated this way, and I'm done being the black sheep of the family. Like this guy didn't sign up for his parents to pass away. He didn't ask for this. So the fact that he spent 18 years growing up and being treated like garbage would probably be enough to make anybody move out and never look back. And honestly, I can seriously say if I was in that situation, I probably would have done the exact same thing. Because John put it best, and I seriously resonate with what he said. He said that loneliness sucks, but it's better than feeling like people would rather not have you around. And I truly agree with that sentiment, and hopefully things can get better for John in his life. An entitled customer screams at me when my register locks up right as I'm about to check out her groceries. And I've honestly never been more frustrated and angry at somebody else's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So in my mid-20s, I worked for a grocery store, and it was hands down the worst experience of my life. And I still have traumatic memories about it. On this particular day, we were slammed. We had all our cash registers open and lines with at least 6 people deep in each lane. When there is over $1,000 in the till, the register would lock up until a manager collected some money to drop off into the safe. And it was just my luck that this happened to me in the middle of this rush. And the lady I was supposed to help next was an absolute nightmare. I told her the situation and that I would get to her in just a minute, but I needed to pull some money from the drawer. Well, as you can imagine, she did not like this in the slightest and proceeded to get incredibly angry about it. I had my back to her so I could count the money I was pulling, and this angered her even more. She started yelling about this being the worst customer service she's ever had, and how she worked in the service industry and had never been treated this poorly. And honestly, I don't doubt that she worked in the service industry. I mean, her lack of empathy certainly fits the bill. Now, due to being mute as a child, I freeze up when I'm yelled at, and my hands start shaking as I tried to focus on counting the money. The lady kept yelling at me, making me lose my train of thought, and I had to keep counting the money. I kept trying to tell her it would only be a moment, but this simply would not make her happy. While this lady was having her tantrum, the hero of the story, the older woman behind her in line, started to verbally lay this lady out. She said to her, "You are acting like an immature child. Grow up, lady." Luckily, this then got more people in line starting to defend me as well, while also yelling at her in the process. I was still shaking, but it felt nice to at least have someone on my side. I was able to pull the money and have it dropped in the safe, which also took a while before the computer recognized that, and eventually I checked her items out. The only thing I chose to say to her was the total amount she owed, and I refused to acknowledge her further or even say goodbye as I would with other customers that might come through my lane. And for my timid yet friendly autistic self, that was the biggest slight I could do in that moment. Honestly, when I worked customer service of any kind, I could not stand when people did that to me. They would get in line and then throw a hissy fit when they didn't get their way, and that honestly would just drive me nuts. So I completely understand where the original poster's coming from. Like seriously, this entitled Karen absolutely was out of line. If she is really in that much of a rush, then get in a different line. Go somewhere else, find a different spot to get this taken care of. But screaming at the employee who has no control over the cash register and is literally only working there hourly is not going to solve anybody's problems. And personally, I think the system locking up at $1,000 is smart. I mean, why on earth would you want to have a lot of money in the cash registers at the front of the store? Someone could easily rob them and take away that money and possibly hurt somebody. Like, how could this entitled Karen not understand that? And also, in today's day and age, is there seriously no other way to try and entertain yourself while this gets taken care of? Like seriously, if I was in that situation and the cashier said to me, hey, I've got to clear out some money from my cash register, this is just going to take a minute, I would then just stand there and get on my phone and that would be it. I would have literally no issue standing there and just waiting. And sure, maybe the entitled Karen had somewhere she desperately needed to be, but if that's the case, then she probably shouldn't have gone shopping. I mean, let's look at the facts here. She clearly did not schedule things correctly, and that is nobody's fault except for her own. And for her to act like this is the worst situation of her life and this is horrible customer service, that is just so unnecessary, and it's nice to see that the people behind her really did come to the cashier's defense. So I'm really sorry that you had to go through this, and hopefully you never have to deal with anything like that ever again. My entitled, stuck-up manager demands that I drop everything that I'm doing just to help out with food that we're delivering to a table. And after dealing with this awful lady for so long, I decided to maliciously comply and get back at this awful manager in the best way possible. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that yes, I know I should have been fired for this, and I do not recommend doing this in any service industry job. This happened several years ago while I was working as a waitress at a chain restaurant. There was this insane manager whom I had to work with on several occasions. She was young and thought she knew everything. She was quite trashy and was sleeping with one of the higher-ups who was married, whose wife also worked at the same restaurant. But that's a different story for another day. This manager, let's call her Mindy, that's not her real name, was always on my butt about everything. I was one of the few shift leads who knew what they were doing, knew how to make the restaurant money, and had many customers write great reviews and say wonderful things about me. I knew how to do my job, and I knew how to do it well. Mindy always singled me out for things when things weren't even my fault, and I would always just take it because it wasn't worth my energy fighting about it. She was the only person in the whole restaurant that I did not get along with, and in contrast, I had a great rapport with the bartenders, servers, cooks, back-of-house staff, and other managers. One day, I came in to start my shift, but was quickly pulled into the manager's office by a different manager. He wanted to bring it to my attention that Mindy had stated on my past shift that I was on my phone and not working hard, and this was not true. I never carried my phone on me because it was a distraction, and I didn't have any room in my aprons. Also, my jeans don't have any pockets. And even with all that in mind, honestly, I just didn't want to have it on me. I mentioned this to the manager, and he gave me the benefit of the doubt, but said he was going to keep an eye on me, as cell phone use has been a major problem with several of the servers and bartenders in the past few months. One shift a few days after that was very busy. I had a full section that was sat with a party of 12 who all ordered beverages from the bar with water. I grab a tray, fill up the water, and hand the glassware to the service bar in the kitchen area. Once all the drinks were on the tray, I slowly started to lift it to get it situated, as it was heavy. Well, Mindy decided that this was the best time to yell at me and tell me that she needed me to run the food that was up at the expo line, which by the way is where she was standing and expediting the food. I took a second to look over to the other two servers who were leaning against the wall, you know, the same ones who were much closer to her, who were also on their phones doing nothing. I said to her, well, I'm a little busy, can somebody else help? Well, when I said that, she snapped back at me and said to me, I told you to do it, so you need to do it right now. At that moment, I honestly didn't even care anymore. So I looked her dead in the eyes, I smiled and I said to her, okay, and I literally dropped the tray of drinks I was holding on the ground. I walked over the broken glass, crunching the cups under my feet, grabbed the plates of food, and asked her where they were going while keeping the smile on my face. The look of shock on her face, the phone-dwelling servers' faces, and the cooks' faces were quite priceless. Once I delivered the food, I went to my party of 12 and apologized to them and told them I dropped the tray of their drinks and I would be right back with a new one, still with that same smile on my face. Once my shift was over, Mindy pulled me into the office and explained that what I did today was not okay, and she was going to write me up for it. So I had to sign a document stating I understood why I was being written up, and I refused to sign it before speaking with other management. There was much more discussion in this conversation, but I can honestly narrow it all down. She said I would be fired if I didn't sign the write-up document at that exact moment. But you know what? I still refused and said I would like to speak with the general manager about it tomorrow morning on my next shift. The next morning, I explained to the general manager what had happened and stated that I was working while others were on their phones, but Mindy singled me out specifically. I also asked him to check the cameras to see the incident taking place, and might I say, it was so satisfying to physically see myself drop everything. After lots of discussion, the general manager said there's no problem here, ripped up the write-up, and told me to continue being the hard worker that I am, and I never had to work with Mindy ever again. Wow, the original poster seriously made a gamble on that one. They took the phrase "drop everything that you're doing and help me out" way too seriously. Like they dropped a full tray full of drinks all over the floor. I can only imagine what kind of mess that made and how long that must have taken just to clean it up. And also, I honestly can't stand people like Mindy, managers who are just singling people out all because they want to, while also making up lies about stuff that they're doing, even though they're not doing that in the first place. Like, it's very clear that Mindy had it out for the original poster, and she was just trying to get her fired, while also basically ignoring all the other servers who are blatantly on their phone doing absolutely nothing. So either way, good for you for getting back at this lady and basically ensuring that you will never have to deal with her ever again. And I completely agree with what the original poster said. They should have been fired for this. This is seriously so insane. But at the end of the day, you got away with it, and this Mindy lady never bothered you ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job demands that I don't give out any Christmas presents to any of the teenagers that we were helping, so I decided to maliciously comply and expose the manager who tried to make that awful decision. And I've never felt more satisfied to eventually see her get fired. Here's what happened. Okay, so this situation is a few years old now, and the place I used to work at has closed down, so I feel comfortable enough to try and share it. I used to work at a place where teenagers lived full-time when they had behavior difficulties, usually related to substance use, if you know what I mean, as well as truancy. They lived there full-time, and the program was staffed a full 24 hours a day. They required supervision at all times except for in the bathroom and at night. Supervision was also reduced down to 15-minute checks all night long. I worked third shift at this job, and I worked there for almost 5 years at the time of this incident. Now, here's the thing. I did not love my management, but I really did love my kids. And for the entire 5.5 years I worked there, during the Christmas holidays, the third shift staff would do the 7 nights of Christmas, wherein we would put little presents outside their doors on the week leading up to Christmas. They were pretty generic things like body washes, lotions, or soft fuzzy blankets, stuff along those lines. But it made them feel a little better about being stuck in an institution during the holidays. This place also had statuses that could be placed upon people, and for ease of understanding, I'll call those statuses bad, good, and perfect. If someone was on the perfect status, they would have a later bedtime. Certain unwanted behaviors could knock them down from the perfect status to a good one, or from a good one all the way down to a bad one. This place insisted up, down, and sideways that the bad status was not a punishment, that the kids' behaviors had earned the bad status, and as soon as they showed remorse and that they'd learned from their mistake, they could earn back good status. This will be important later on. Well, during the year 2018, we got a new manager. We'll call them Sammy. Sammy is not their real name. A few days before the Christmas holiday, Sammy calls me up when I get to work and says to me, "Kids who earn bad status don't get their 7 days of Christmas present until they earn a different status outside of bad." And when Sammy said that, I super disagreed. She insisted it was because we're rewarding bad behavior. I insisted, though, that bad status wasn't a punishment and that withholding presents was a punishment. So I thought to myself, which is it, Sammy? Which one is more important here? She got short with me and ended up hanging up on me. So I wrote out my end-of-night logs by throwing her under the bus, and I stated openly on government legal emails that Miss Sammy had stated that the ladies who had earned bad status were not allowed to get the 7 days of Christmas presents that their peers were getting, and as this was a punishment, we needed to change the legislation on the rule set. Since bad status says on its paperwork that it's not a punishment, it's a consequence earned by behaviors, we should be changing it to say that these behaviors are bad and they earned a punishment status. Well, as a result, I got several emails in quick succession that I should definitely give them the presents. And then as a result, I got written up. Now fast forward and Sammy did get fired, even though it wasn't from this incident, but from several others later down the line. Eventually, I ended up quitting as well. And now I obsessively crawl over our employment page at my current job just to make sure that she doesn't work here either. Wow, talk about the Grinch who stole Christmas. Sammy sounds like an absolutely horrible person. Here you are working at a facility to try and help troubled teenagers. You're doing something good every year by giving out presents and helping these kids move along with their lives, and then Sammy comes in and says no more presents for bad status kids. Like seriously, Sammy, you're the one with the problem, and I can definitely see why you got fired. So good for the original poster for exposing this piece of garbage, because if it was up to Sammy, none of those kids would have gotten a present, and that truly would have ruined somebody's Christmas. Am I the jerk for asking my boyfriend's family to stop inviting me over for dinner? Here's what happened. So my boyfriend's family recently invited me for dinner to celebrate my birthday. They are notorious for eating exactly at 5:00 p.m., but since I work in the office occasionally, and it's a 1-hour commute, they will sometimes offer to push dinner so we can eat after I finish commuting back to town. The last 3 times they have invited me to dinner, however, I have arrived to find everyone already eating, and most recently, everyone was clearing their plate by the time I walk through the door. For some context, my train arrives at my hometown at about 6:13 in the evening, and I will be through their door by 6:20 p.m. If I go over after working from home, I'll be there usually at about 5:15 p.m. at the latest. I come from a family where no one touches their food without everyone at the table and ready to eat, let alone a guest who's still coming over. Since I was raised this way, I find what my boyfriend's family is doing completely disrespectful, and it hurts my feelings that they offer to push dinner and then eat without me anyways, not to mention the uncomfortableness of also having to eat alone at the table. I've brought this up to my boyfriend, and he says it's not a big deal, and that members of his family need to eat at a certain time because of blood sugar issues. Also, just to note, my boyfriend has stopped eating before I get there since I told him that it bothers me, but his family has not. Recently, when they offered to have me for dinner for my birthday after an office day, I politely suggested to my boyfriend that they eat without me and I will come after I get home for cake or something like that. My boyfriend said he wouldn't be suggesting that to his parents because it's rude and ungrateful, and that I can deal with everyone eating before me for one day. My stance is pretty firm that if you invite someone for dinner, you shouldn't eat without them, so I've asked him going forward to stop inviting me to family dinners. I don't feel like I'm overreacting or over-asking, but my boyfriend is pretty floored that I would suggest that. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk in this situation, but also you do know you can say no to coming over for dinner, right? You could just say something like, oh, thank you for the invite, but I've had a busy day and I won't be available to eat dinner with the family. You could also explain to them that your work schedule and commuting back and forth is really hard on you, so you're only available for dinners on the weekends. Like that literally could solve all of your problems. I think making like a blanket statement of like, okay, just don't invite me for any dinners ever. Like that seems like an overreaction in my opinion, and I can understand kind of where your boyfriend's coming from. So I don't think you're the jerk in this situation, but also this situation is kind of weird because you're an adult and you absolutely can say no if you don't want to show up. Would I be the jerk if I hire a nanny to help with childcare around the house after my wife got a new job, thus preventing her from being around the house to help out? Here's what happened. My wife and I have been married for 12 years and we have 3 kids. We both work full-time, with me being the primary breadwinner and earning around 3 times what she does. About 4 months ago, she was offered a promotion at her job. It wasn't a big step up in pay, but would be a lot more responsibility, as well as being on call 3 to 4 nights a week. When she told me about it, she was really excited and acting like it was a huge opportunity to advance her career, and I was happy for her. But I told her I had some concerns about how often she would be out of the house in the evenings, or how we would have to alter our schedules and routines due to her being on call. She assured me that being on call wasn't an issue and reiterated that she would be compensated for that time even if she wasn't actually called in. I told her that ultimately it was her decision, but I feel feel like we live comfortably already, and the little extra money wouldn't be worth the hassle it would cause in our lives. She ended up taking the job, and wouldn't you know it, she ended up being called in about 50% of the time. This resulted in us having to find alternate rides for our kids to do activities, canceling plans, her leaving in the middle of dinner or family time, etc. I also had to pick up a lot of slack in terms of household duties and childcare. We have never fought as much as we have been since she took this promotion, but she's convinced it's a stepping stone to something better. Now, I floated the idea of hiring a nanny for the nights that she's on call so that I have help in the inevitable situation where she gets called in again. Simply having another person to watch the kids if I need to take one of them to an activity or a play date, or to be able to make dinner easier or get other chores done. But she shot the idea down immediately and told me that me picking up her slack is not that big of a deal and I should be able to handle it. After a 3-week stretch of her being called in 3 nights a week, I told her that I was going to start looking into nannies with or without her agreement. I told her the only way I would reconsider is if she tries to get her old job back or look for a different one because her promotion is not working for me or the kids. Now, when I said this, she did not take this well. She accused me of being a lazy person and tried to buy my way out of being a father. She also said that the cost of a nanny would offset any extra money her promotion is bringing in. When I told her it would actually cost more than that, she got incredibly upset. She has no time frame for how long she will be in this position at work, and apparently has no care for my feelings on this. I'm tempted to just hire a nanny anyways, because this is not sustainable for me. I think this promotion has blinded her on how negatively it has impacted the rest of our family, and I refuse to just suck it up any longer. Now, I do want to continue by clarifying a few things. My wife did not do 100% of the childcare or all of the chores before her promotion. Before her promotion, we would divide and conquer and split childcare and chores as evenly as possible. Both of us were 100% comfortable with how we had these things divided between us. It's not like I was coming home and doing absolutely nothing. We split responsibilities equally between the two of us. But now those responsibilities have fallen on my shoulders, and I'm honestly starting to get overwhelmed and I don't know what to do. Yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from here. It seems like the original poster was being involved already as a father, and they weren't being lazy or standoffish when it comes to being involved with their children. So I completely understand where they're coming from, because right now, 3 days out of the week, the original poster is basically being a solo parent, and that can really be frustrating and probably really hard to deal with. On the other side of this, your wife is advancing her career. Like, this really is a good thing for both of you. Even if the money isn't making a dent in your wallet or anything like that, and even though it's going to be a small amount compared to what you make, this is still a really good thing for your wife, and she clearly really enjoys it. So it kind of makes me wonder if there is any kind of situation where this might be able to work out. I will say though, I don't really like the way you're talking about your wife and her new job. Like, it really doesn't seem like you're being supportive of the job that she's doing. So no, I don't personally think you're the jerk. I think maybe you need to find some kind of middle ground with your wife, because this promotion is clearly very important to her, and I think it would be a good idea to step in and support your wife. Am I the jerk for kicking out my sister's friend from my house after she gave my child baby melatonin? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my husband and I took in one of my little sister's friends, and we're gonna call her Sam. Sam is not her real name. She's 18 years old, and Sam has been with us for almost a full year, and we've been taking care of her the entire time. We also have 2 small children who live in our house as well. We have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. We occasionally ask Sam to watch the kids for us when we have errands to run or when we have a date night or something like that. Well, she graduated high school in May and did not have a job over the summer, nor paid any sort of bills. So we didn't think we were asking anything huge considering we pay everything. We're paying for her cell phone, her shoes, clothing, anything that she needs. We just finally trusted Sam enough to watch the kids overnight so we could go out of town to celebrate our anniversary. Everything went fine and we returned home with no issues. Well, at least that's what we thought. Today, I had some errands to run while my husband went to work, so I asked Sam to watch the kids for about 2 hours last evening. Sam is in no way a morning person, and it's very apparent. For reference, this is at 7:12 in the morning, and the kids had just gotten up at 6:30. This morning when she got up to watch the kids, she instantly fell back asleep on the couch. My husband and I had to wake her up before we left. We have a car in the shop currently, so I was dropping him off and then doing my errands. I had to use the restroom after dropping him off, so I stopped back home to find my house door unlocked and the house alarm not even turned on. Sam was in the room with the kids sleeping, and this was at 7:50 in the morning. morning. She had no idea I ever entered the house, and I was angry but got back into my car to do what I needed to do. While I was driving, I had a nagging feeling to check the living room camera from after the time we left, and what I could see on the camera absolutely horrified me as a mom. Not even 10 minutes after we left, Sam goes to the spot we keep the children's melatonin and proceeds to plop one into my child's mouth. I saw red and sent the video to my husband to confirm what I saw, and he agreed. I then also sent it to my mom to triple check it. So I fly home and I go inside to confront her. She lies and lies to me until she tells me that she actually did do it. I told her that she needed to be out of my house today by 1 o'clock, and she had a total meltdown. She gave me every reason in the book as to why she did it and freaked out that she has nowhere to go. I told a few people because I'm so upset and I'm crying. I had some people who agreed with me, but some saying I shouldn't kick her out since there's nowhere else that she could go. It's honestly making me feel horrible. So am I the jerk for kicking her out of my house? What should I do? Okay, so first off, this is really a tough situation. On one hand, it does seem like there's some sketchy things going on. Like from the outside looking in, it does kind of seem like Sam did this in a way that was really not okay. So I can understand why the original poster would be so upset. But I'm sure Sam would probably say that she thought she was doing the right thing because that melatonin was specifically for the child. Like, I'm willing to bet that she didn't do this in a malicious way or in any kind of way that would be inappropriate. Maybe she just didn't know the right timing to give it to the child or something like that. And sure, I totally understand that she was super tired and this happened early in the morning. I understand that's part of the reason why this does look so sketchy. It almost looks purposeful in a way, but I'm really not convinced that suddenly Sam is deciding, oh yeah, this is what we're gonna do so I can get some sleep. Like, she's been living with the original poster for a while. I don't think out of nowhere she would do this without some kind of reasoning behind it. So maybe Sam thought she was doing the right thing here. And based on the evidence that we have in front of us, I'm not totally convinced that Sam did this in a malicious way. An entitled Karen and her family lied to me about how many people are staying in my Airbnb, claiming that they only had 6 people in the cabin that I own, when in reality there was secretly double the amount. And once I confronted them with this, they not only refused to leave, but they also demanded a refund. And I've honestly never been more blown away by somebody's dishonesty in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife and I own a mountain cabin, and a few years ago we decided to put it on Airbnb. This place is a remote A-frame on 3 acres of forested land with awesome views, and it's about 30 minutes from a ski resort. This was our first Airbnb, so we were pretty cautious about everything. We looked at past guest reviews, asking them about their trip to make sure this place would suit them well. Basically trying to make sure we knew who was going to be there. Everything was going pretty well. That is until the entitled people of this story booked the whole weekend for Thanksgiving. They told us they were driving out from Texas, and it was supposed to be a mom, a dad, 3 kids, and 2 dogs. Now, being that this was our first holiday rental, we went all out for them. We set a turkey to defrost in the fridge for them and left out a snack platter and a couple bottles of champagne. They arrived Sunday night, and the next few days are an absolute nightmare. I get a 6 o'clock in the morning call Monday morning. The whole family is puking and they are incredibly sick. They all had altitude sickness. For reference, the cabin is at 11,000 feet above sea level, so this does happen, especially when you aren't in shape and you just came from sea level. I mean, we did warn the guests about this ahead of time, so I'm on the phone talking them through everything, where the urgent care is, what to do, etc. Thankfully, by day 2, things have calmed down. However, I then take a look at our water cistern gauge that's remotely monitored. This house has what we call a slow well recovery system. Basically, at some times of the year, the well might only produce around 60 gallons per day, instead of the usual 300 plus gallons or more. So we have a 500-gallon water storage system that helps smooth out the demand curves. Basically, once the tank goes below 40%, the well starts pumping, and if the well goes dry, a timer gets started, and it will pump again in 3 hours until the tank is topped off. Now, this system is more than adequate for 6 people in the house. Also, the house has only 1 bathroom, as well as a 40-gallon hot water tank, so it's not like anyone can take long showers. Tactically speaking, we just asked the guests to conserve water, but in the end, the system is fully automatic, and no one even knows that it's there. Well, after 48 hours, I check our tank monitor, and I see that it's around 35% full, which means the guests used all of the storage, plus whatever the well can produce in 2 days. I'm estimating about 700 gallons of water in total. I literally thought that something must be broken, because there was no way 2 parents and 3 little kids could use that much. I thought perhaps the well fuse popped and they got nothing from the well. well. So I'm now freaking out, thinking that this nice family was about to be without water. But boy was I wrong when I found out that these people were scamming us the entire time. So I called the family and I politely asked that they conserve water, and I had them reset the system, which is basically just turning the breaker on and off. I then told the lady on the phone that I was talking to that I would monitor the system for the next 3 hours, and if I didn't see the levels make any progress, I would get a water truck and bring it in. And trust me when I say this would literally be a first, as I've never needed to do it. The lady on the phone said to me, "That sounds good, but hurry because we drink a lot of water." Now honestly, how weird is a comment like that? As if 5 people drinking a gallon a day max somehow equates to the hundreds of gallons missing from the system. Fast forward and there really is no change in the water level after 3 hours. So I get on the phone to book a water truck. But as it's now only 1 day before Thanksgiving, it's just not happening. So now I need to figure out how to transport water to this house, which is, by the way, about an hour and a half away. So I went to a farm and tractor supply and bought a 275-gallon tank that would fit in my trunk, plus hoses and pumps. Then I drive up there, figuring out where I can buy bulk water from, and I go to the house. I finally get there at around 4 o'clock p.m., and the guests are out, but gave me permission to go inside and test things out. I mean, I really wanted to make sure the system was working. And while I did find out that it was working, it made me realize that they really did use all of that water. I went inside and I found 2 huskies in a crate who had soiled themselves, and it was all over the place. It smelled disgusting. The owner said they would be back and finally clean it up. At this point, I've been working on this for 8 hours. I'm sick, it's 10 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and I'm now hooking up the transfer pump. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and I still need to get to my parents' house. And thankfully, they're only 30 minutes away from the cabin, so it's not that long of a drive. I start pumping, and then I see their car pull up, and they are waiting at the bottom of the driveway. Knowing they have small kids, I go down and I say hi. I let them know they can go on in, and I'll be done in about 40 minutes. Now, at this point, they started acting really odd, and it's then that I saw 2 more cars on the side of the road around the switchback. And right at that moment, I finally realized what's going on. The reason I just did all this work and spent nearly $600 on supplies is because these people had 12 people staying there. Now, if you're curious as to how I didn't notice it when I went inside, I didn't snoop around the place. I just went straight to the breaker box and then went to the crawl space where the tanks are. Also, the smell from the dogs was just horrible, so I got out as fast as possible. At this point, I went up to the front door, I knocked on it, and I said, "Okay, be honest with me. How many people do you have staying here?" This lady actually looks at me and says, "We have 9 people." But I could tell that she was lying. But even that number was over our legal capacity based on our permit. I say to them, "You realize that this listing is only for 6 people, right?" This entitled Karen says to me, "Well, there are beds for more people and the kids have a crib, and we didn't know our family wanted to come when we booked it." Now here's the thing, the loft does have a pull-out couch, so best case scenario, there is sleeping for about 8 adults, but I'm guessing people were sleeping on the couches as well. I then said to her, "I just spent $600 plus a full day to solve a problem that was actually not a problem." This entitled Karen actually said to me, "Well, the house should have water. I don't know what to tell you." I responded back by saying, "The house system was designed and tested for 6 people, lady. You know, the stated number on the listing. I don't know how you think it's okay to have this many people here." The entitled Karen then says what I was thinking before I could say it. She says to me, "Well, we could leave, but it will have to be tomorrow, and we expect a full refund because we don't want to drive down these roads in the dark with our kids." And at this point, it's maybe 6 o'clock in the evening at this point. There's no cell phone service at the cabin, so I went to town. I got on Wi-Fi at a local bar and I called the Airbnb. Now at this point, I had been hosting for 3 months and I had no idea how to handle this situation. But now I was more afraid that they would damage something in the house. So Airbnb canceled the reservation and asked them to leave the house. Overall, I was able to recover around $200 for a deep cleaning on the house, and thankfully, these people did not get a refund. Wow, those people sound like an absolute nightmare to deal with. Seriously, here you are having this cabin, and you listed it on Airbnb just to try and make some extra money on the side, only to then have this Karen and her stupid family basically try to scam you out of your money. Like seriously, that is so not okay. Like this guy went out of his way just to make sure these people had water, while also assuming that his system was broken and things were really bad. That's a lot of stress and money that they spent and had to go through just to find out these people were lying to them the entire time. So honestly, good for you for getting something out of this situation. I am so glad Airbnb had your back on this one, one because I think I would have lost my mind if I didn't make money off of that situation. Because these people sound absolutely awful, and there's no good excuse for the way they treated you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend of nearly 7 years confessed to me 5 days ago that she cheated on me 2 years into our relationship, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I first want to start off by saying that we met on a dating app on Halloween night 2016. I had just turned 21 and had been in only one serious relationship until that point, which had lasted 6 months and ended with me being cheated on, but thankfully she confessed right away. I was definitely looking for a partner and talked to a variety of other potential partners, but we just clicked. We talked for about 2 weeks, but it became pretty obvious that we were very attracted to each other. Mid-November was the first time we met. I drove 2 hours to hang out with her while her mom was away, and we hooked up. In the following weeks, she let me know she would be moving an 8-hour drive away. We weren't official at this point, but I did feel strong emotions towards her, so I asked her to be mine the weekend she moved away. I reassured her that I would visit her and that this would all work out, and for the next 2.5 years, we went back and forth visiting each other. I even hopped on a plane for the first time in my life to go see her. We have lived together since summer of 2019, and up until a few days ago, we were finally going to rent out our own spot. I've never suspected that she could be unfaithful because of how she's shown genuine care and support for myself and my family. We have been together for some of the most memorable events of each other's lives. Stuff like graduations, parents' weddings, and vacations. We even adopted 2 cats a few months ago. The last 2 weeks have been especially fun since we started going out places a lot more. For the first time in years, I felt good about where I was in life, and I was super excited looking forward. Fast forward, and Sunday morning was normal. She got up and went to church while I slept in. I got the call right around noon. She sounded distraught. She said to me, "I really need to talk to you. Can you meet me in the car?" I figured maybe she had an argument with our friend that she usually goes to church with, or some other issue not related to the relationship. When I went to her in the car, she was already sobbing. She said to me, "I love you now more than ever." I don't recall how exactly the words went, but she began explaining to me how on Halloween night of 2018, she went out to an event with 2 of her coworkers, 1 guy and 1 girl. After the event was over, my girlfriend dropped off the girl because her drop-off point was closest. Now, I'm not sure at what point my girlfriend decided to let the guy drive. She claims that she was super tired by now, as it was close to 2 in the morning. She explains to me how she had never had any ideas about this guy or any attraction at all, but he was being really pushy about getting some action. Thinking about what happened next really messes with my head. He convinces her to make out, which she claims was disgusting, and I don't know how long this went on, but once she tried to say enough, he kept pushing for more. Eventually, they hopped in the back seat and things went from there, if you know what I mean. According to her, she started crying not long after things started to get going, which made this guy stop, grab her phone, and block himself on her Snapchat. Now, my girlfriend still worked at the job she worked at for a while, but she says they had 0 contact afterwards and would avoid him all the time afterwards. The way I see it, she had so many options, but she chose to cheat on me with someone she wasn't even attracted to. And this is all out of weakness because she couldn't stand up for herself. Now, I do believe her when she says it all came down to her being pressured and confused. She's a super nice person. She's very shy and reserved, and I see how this could have happened back then, but it still doesn't change the fact that it happened, and I've been lied to for the past 5 years. Once it settled in on Sunday night, we talked again, and it ended with me asking for space away from her, which she respected and stayed with her friends for the 2 following nights. On Tuesday, we talked after work and decided to try and work things through. She then moved back in that night. I still feel that I love her, but there's something missing. It's definitely the trust, but maybe more than that. I've woken up from nightmares in the past 2 nights, which is rare for me to even have nightmares in the first place, and they both included themes of being betrayed by her or being made to feel like I'm not enough. I'm struggling to choose where to go from here. I really want it to work, but the trust is broken and I'm not sure if I'll ever get it back. I'm afraid staying with her will end up bad for the both of us. Should I risk the pain of being hurt again or put myself through the pain of letting her go? I haven't told anyone else about this, and honestly at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. This is such an awful situation, but honestly, I don't think it's awful in the ways that you might be thinking. I'm really not convinced that she totally cheated on you. It really does seem like she was forced into that situation, and she's just coming to grips with the fact that she didn't do anything about it at the time. It doesn't seem like this was a willing choice in my opinion, and I think this guy really was doing something super sketchy with your girlfriend. So in my opinion, I don't think this is cheating. Like, she did not seek this guy out specifically. This guy pushed her into doing something she was not comfortable with. She even cried and told him to stop. Like, that doesn't sound like cheating to me. Cheating would be like her going behind your back and doing this without you knowing about it. But it honestly doesn't seem like that's happening at all. Instead, this really sounds like something much more sinister and evil. It's not even funny. And I think your girlfriend is actually the victim of something that happened, instead of a cheater who was going behind your back. So hopefully you can kind of see exactly what's happening right now. Because personally, I am not convinced that your girlfriend actually cheated on you. Am I the jerk for kicking out my girlfriend and her son after she invited her ex-boyfriend into our home? Here's what happened. To start things out, every name in this story is fake. My girlfriend and I, by the name of Sarah, have been together for 4 years, and she has a son with her ex by the name of Mark. Sarah has full custody of her son, with her ex having scheduled visitations one weekend every month. Sarah and her son moved in with me a little over a year and a half ago, and in my perspective, it was a little rocky at first. I've always been pretty protective of my space, so making room for 2 other people was difficult for me. When Sarah moved in with me, we both agreed that the visitations for Mark would be held in our apartment as long as I'm home. The main reason I wanted this is because I don't know Mark that well, and I don't want him wandering around our apartment without me there. And when we proposed this idea to Mark, he was fine with it. Now, moving on to the real issue, 3 weeks ago marked 4 months since Mark last visited, so I had asked Sarah when he was planning on visiting his son. My girlfriend replied by shrugging her shoulders and telling me that she would ask him. Well, she never followed up with it. So a few days ago, I asked when Mark's next visit was, and Sarah said she'll tell me when she knew. Sarah's son was also in the living room, but had apparently overheard us and shouted something along the lines of, "Well, Dad was here last weekend, remember?" When her son said this, Sarah's face immediately dropped, and when I asked what he meant by that, she wouldn't give me a direct answer. Eventually, she ended up telling me that for the past 2 visits, Mark had been to our apartment when I was working. When I accused her of going back on our agreement, she kept telling me this was her home too, and she could invite whoever she wanted, and that it was fine because she was here and watching what he was doing. I told her that was besides the point, and she violated my trust. This then blew up into a huge argument, which ended in me telling her to get out of my apartment. So she packed up and left with her son, and the last I heard, she was staying with her parents. I have since gotten several messages from both Sarah and her parents calling me a jerk for kicking Sarah and her son out of their home over something that was so small. She's even been blasting me on Instagram and Facebook about how horrible I am to do this to her. It's now got me thinking that I might be the jerk in this situation, but I'm honestly not entirely sure yet. So what do you think? Am I in the wrong here? What should I do? Honestly, this is a really tricky situation. For starters, it really does seem like from the outside looking in that you kicked her out over something relatively small. Like, this is the first time you heard about this. It really seems like we went from, okay, you did this behind my back, to suddenly saying you can't live here anymore. Like, if you ask me, that's a giant leap. You're going from, hey, I'm really not happy that you did this, to suddenly saying, okay, you don't have a place to live anymore. And you know what? I kind of see where Sarah's coming from. She does live there, even though the apartment's yours. She does have a slight claim over that living space just as much as you do. But I can also see your point of view as well. You really don't want Mark there without you present. You simply don't know him, and you feel that it's inappropriate for him to be there without you present as well. Which again, I completely understand where you're coming from here. I wouldn't want this guy wandering around my apartment and judging it or doing stuff to it that I wouldn't know about. Even though I'm sure that didn't happen, but I think you get my point. So with that in mind, I can completely understand why you would be so upset about her doing this behind your back. This was a massive betrayal of trust, and I would be very mad that she did this without talking to me first, especially after we agreed that that's not how we handle this. Now, I wouldn't be so mad as to kick my girlfriend out of the house, but I would still be disappointed that this happened regardless. So in my opinion, I think this could have been handled really differently. I think there very easily could have been some kind of mutual understanding between the two of you, while also still allowing her to live in your apartment. I think you made a very rash decision, and I think it would be in your best interest, if you really want to keep this relationship going, to try and fix this as much as you can. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Leave a comment down below. Would you have let Sarah stay in your apartment if this happened to you? Or would you be just as angry as the original poster and kick her out of the apartment altogether? Leave a comment down below. We would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for calling my ex greedy after she came to me begging for money. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that all names in this story are fake. I'm a 32-year-old male and I was married to Emma, who's 32 years old, for almost 8 years. We have known each other practically our whole lives, and we got together towards the end of high school and married when we were in college. Our son was born a year later. We were young, about 21 years old at the time, but I really thought we would be together always. I adored her, and I picked up and moved because she wanted to follow her parents and sister to another state. I worked while she stayed at home with our son. Then, 4 years ago, I thought we were expecting our second child together, but instead I came home to find her with another guy. They were talking about their baby, and she was saying how excited she was to see his little girl. She told me during the divorce that she was telling him that so he would stay, and she knew her daughter was really mine. But DNA proved otherwise, and I rejected any parental responsibility for her daughter. Now, because we were legally married and the actual father was gone, it was tricky to get the courts to sever the automatic parental rights. But in the end, they did. I mean, Emma even put me on the birth certificate. Thankfully, that was erased when I was freed from responsibility towards Emma's daughter. Emma tried so many times to get me back. I have told her each and every time that I would never look at her and love her again. I told her the best thing for her to do is find someone else and leave me alone. We share custody of our son, and he has struggled with everything that's happened. I found a therapist for him when we were going through the divorce, and they check in with each other from time to time. My son had questions that I did my best to answer with a therapist. Questions about whether we will ever get back together again when it comes to me and Emma, while also asking if Emma's my daughter, and also wanting to know why, since he was told that she was mine before the affair was discovered. And Emma even said this afterwards, just to try and make me take her daughter on as well. I pay child support for my son. I also send him over with clothes and stuff I buy for him because Emma can't afford to clothe him very well. And a judge has said that does not matter in terms of custody. Emma has tried to get me more clothes that a boy or a girl could wear just so that she can use them for her daughter too eventually, but I simply refused. She also asked me to buy girly toys or to buy gifts for her son to give to his sister. She broke down in front of me a few days ago when we left a meeting for my son's school, and she told me she's struggling and her daughter is growing up seeing her brother have so much more than her, and she feels guilty but she needs my help. She said I'm the only person who could or even would help her out. I ended up calling her greedy while she was pleading for me, and I told her if she wanted stuff for her daughter, then she better chase after her baby daddy and leave me alone because I will never be responsible for her child. She then started yelling at me and I just walked away. That night she sent me a dozen messages saying that I was spiteful towards a child and it made me more of a jerk than her. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, with all things considered and the nightmare that she put you through, I think I would feel the exact same way. Like she tried to claim this daughter was yours when in reality she was cheating on you. This is all just the results of her actions. And if she doesn't like that, then honestly, that is her problem, not yours. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. And sure, what you said is maybe a little bit mean, but I think her cheating on you and ruining your marriage is way worse than anything you said that night. An entitled mother lets her kids run around my coffee shop and do whatever they want. But after her kids started destroying the property of this coffee shop, I decided to step in and tell her enough is enough, causing this Karen of a mother to freak out and start screaming at me. Here's what happened. So there's this lady that comes in all the time. She has 4 children, 3 of which can walk around. She always comes up and orders her coffee, but then if her kid throws a fit, she orders something for them too. They each get a pastry, which is popular for kids between the ages of 3 and 6. It's like getting a big slice of sugary bread, with each of them getting a drink as well. It's always very complicated to make because the kids all want something entirely different. Anyways, her kids are usually fine. I've noticed, however, that she never really watches them. She gets her coffee, sits down on our couch, and gets out her phone. She makes them, again these little kids, come up and grab their own orders. It's also dumb because since they're little, I have to stand there and reach over the counter to hand their drinks over, while also making sure that they don't drop it or spill it on the ground. The other day she came in about an hour before we close. That's right around when we start cleaning up because it takes me that long to close the shop. So she orders her coffee and luckily her kids didn't feel like getting anything. So I made her coffee and that was it. I'm washing dishes and all of a sudden I hear a shatter from across the restaurant. Her little boy had broken some salt and pepper shakers that were sitting on the table that eventually fell on the ground because they were horsing around. Now there's a big pile of salt and pepper on the floor, but worst of all, there's now glass on the floor around little children. So I rushed over to sweep it up up because I did not want anybody getting hurt, and that was honestly fine for the most part. But then her smallest girl started getting upset over whatever and started ripping posters off of our bulletin board in a fit. Now for reference, we have a big bulletin board so that we can hang community announcements on it, and that was honestly my last straw. I came over and held her hands gently and told her to stop, but the entitled mother comes over and told me to take my hands off of her kid, and so I politely and calmly explained why I was holding her hands and that she can't just rip down our posters. Thumbtacks were falling off, and again, I didn't want anybody getting hurt. This really upset her. She told me to just leave her alone and that she would calm down soon enough. So I told her again, your daughter cannot rip posters off of our bulletin board. But right after I said that, the thumbtacks were still flying off of it. She then screamed at me, something about how I'm not a parent and I'd never understand, and something about my generation being so weak and stupid. She then gathered her kids and then left the store. Now, I'm not one to take yelling easily, and I don't like yelling in general, and I have some past experiences if you catch my drift. But honestly, I was really shaken up after this, and overall, this interaction was incredibly weird. Yeah, that entitled mother was being really dumb. The fact that she tried to pull the card of, oh, you're not a parent, you don't understand how hard it is, in my opinion is such a cop-out it's not even funny. Because in reality, she's never done anything to try and give her kids any kind of discipline. She's never punished them or reprimanded them in some kind of way. She hasn't trained them how to act in public and how you can't start ripping things off the wall or start horsing around in public and breaking stuff or anything like that. Instead, she has let her kids train her. Their stupid tantrums have become a way of life, and they can now get away with whatever they want. And that's not a result of the kids acting up. That's the result of this entitled mother not training her kids, making this entire situation her fault. And for her to turn around and be like, wow, get your hands off my child. It's like, lady, your kid's gonna cut herself or hurt herself in some kind of way, all because you're not watching her properly. Like if I was working there, I would have done the same thing, even if it was just to block the kid from ripping posters off the wall. So yeah, the entitled mom in this story was being super weird. You did a really good job of trying to keep things at bay, but clearly this entitled Karen of a mother had different plans, and unfortunately, you just happened to be caught in the crossfire. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled university refuses to allow any of our meal plan options to roll over to the next semester, so I decided to maliciously comply by bringing dozens of homeless people into my university to use up all of my meal plan points as a fantastic and wholesome way of getting revenge. Here's what happened. So this happened my freshman year of college about 20 years ago. My university had just invested in a big new dining hall, and to help pay for their investment, they required all new students to buy a $150 meal plan for both semesters. Now this was a big financial burden being from a lower middle class family, but my parents pulled funds to help me out and make it happen. Shortly into my first semester, I found out from friends that the meals you didn't use didn't roll over. Since I lived off campus, I knew that I would not be able to use them all. Heading into November, I realized I would end up with about 60 to 75 meals left over, and I complained about this a lot to my family and friends because it seemed like such a waste. But this is where my plan comes into play. My freshman year of college was also my cousin's senior year, and we hung out pretty often. He was the biggest trickster and prankster type that you've ever met. One night while we were drinking, he says to me the following: "What if you brought a bunch of homeless people to use up all of your leftover meals? I bet that would upset those self-righteous jerks so much it would be great." We laughed all night about it, but the more I thought about the idea, the more I really started to like it. We talked all weekend about it and hatched a plan. On Monday morning, we went down to the local Salvation Army around the corner. Now, I have grown to really despise this organization, but in the early 2000s in small-town USA, it's simply what we had. We told the lady at the desk I would love to feed people in need with my meal plan. She was hesitant at first, but ended up saying that she was working with people that this would be a huge blessing to, especially during the holiday season. She helped me organize 2 days the following week where about 30 people would meet me to eat at the dining hall. I would wear a certain hat so they could find me, and we would then go out to eat. The day finally arrived and all kinds of people were there. There were homeless people in tattered clothing. There were families with kids that seemed excited to eat out. There was even one family I will always remember that seemed embarrassed to take a handout, but I made an effort to talk to everybody and make them feel welcome. Once 12 o'clock rolled around, we headed to the dining hall. I walked up to the lady at the entrance and I said to him, "These people are with me. They are my friends, and I would like to swipe them in." Now, she did look very confused, but reluctantly she said okay. Now, to say we got got every reaction humanly possible would be an understatement. There were staff that were obviously annoyed with the influx of diners. There were students that were laughing. There were students giving me the silent clap. There were snobbish faculty members that seemed to be disgusted at the type of people coming into the dining hall. But you know what? I didn't care at all. Eventually, a head staff member came up and said that they knew what I was doing and they didn't like it. I said to them, "These are my friends eating with me. I paid for these meals. Am I doing anything wrong?" And when I said that, she was completely stumped. The next day, the same situation happened with the same reactions. It seemed that I had caused quite a stir on campus, and it just so happened that the university president was eating there that day. She came up to me and said that even though she would ask that I not tell my friends to do the same thing with their meals, as the staff couldn't handle the influx of diners, she was proud that her students had the heart to do something for others like that. The following semester, I did the exact same thing. I even used my meals sparingly so I could bring in more people. The one memory that will always stick out in my head is the family with the little kids so excited to go to the pizza bar, as well as wanting to go to the soft serve ice cream machine, giggling the entire time. To this day, it's still one of the proudest moments of my life. My friends and I and my family still have a drink and chuckle over the story, as well as the annoyed, angry reactions I got as a result. That is honestly a really good and wholesome way of getting back at this university. First off, why on earth would your meals not roll over to the next semester? That is seriously such a waste of money. If you're gonna force me to pay, what, $150 for a meal plan? You better allow me to use all the meals whenever I want. And that absolutely should stretch over to both semesters. There's no reason for that not to. That's such a stupid idea. But also, this is like the malicious compliance you want to run into. This was for a good cause. You helped out people in need and you really did make a difference in the community, even though some of the faculty didn't like what you were doing. So good for you for doing the right thing. This was not only a really kind thing to do for the people around you, but it also was a really funny way of sending it right back at the university. My husband has rented a house for me and my baby that is absolutely disgusting and has mold all over the place. And now that we've signed a 1-year lease, we are stuck living here. And I'm so angry and frustrated, I seriously now don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, my husband took a new job. It's a work from home job for 4 days a week and 1 day in the office. We knew this job would require us to move from Florida to Georgia, and that was good with us. My husband went to Georgia to look at house rentals while I stayed behind to take care of our baby. I sent him a list of homes that looked great online and asked him to check those out and pick a clean, safe space for us to live. And that was legitimately the only thing I requested of him. Well, my baby and I arrive in Georgia to find this rental is absolutely disgusting. The walls are dirty, and the baseboards in some areas are practically black. There are roaches everywhere, there's mold under the sinks, there's broken floorboards in almost every room. The house is a dump, and I don't know how an active 1-year-old can possibly safely live here. I walked into this place, I looked at this dump, and I immediately cried. It's been 3 days, and I'm still in disbelief that he thought this would be an acceptable place for us to live. I feel stupid for trusting his bad judgment. When he came to look at houses in person, he only did a 5-minute walkthrough and thought that this was fine. To say he doesn't have an eye for detail is a huge understatement. He never inspected deeper to see any of the problems. And now we've signed a 1-year lease and we're completely stuck here. I've already called and emailed the property manager company just to try and see if they can fix this, and I'm honestly praying it happens. I completely blame my husband for not doing his due diligence or even caring enough to make sure that this house is safe for his baby. I don't know how I will ever get past this with him. The anger I feel about this decision he has made is really hard to get past. I've cried myself to sleep, I've yelled at him, I've threatened to go back to Florida to stay with my family. I mean, how can I forgive this and try and move forward? I am still so angry at him for putting our family in this mess. I should have never trusted him to find a safe, clean space for us to live in. And now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so either your husband didn't care about where you guys lived, or he's a complete idiot and he's blind. Because seriously, how could he miss all of this? There are literally roaches on the floorboards are disgusting, there's black mold all over the place. Like, this guy just didn't even look this place over in the slightest. He probably just halfway did it and said, okay, this place is good, and then signed the lease without even thinking about it. That is honestly so disappointing, and that's so unfair. I know if I was in your shoes, I would be super furious. And even worse, you have a baby in your life. And I don't know about you, but I definitely do not want my baby around black mold. That sounds absolutely disgusting, and seriously, that's not okay. So honestly, I would go to the property manager and see if they can fix this as soon as possible. Also, I would check the laws in your area, because I'm pretty sure what the property manager is advertising is completely illegal illegal. Like having black mold in your property and then allowing a family with a baby to rent that place not only sounds super sketchy, but is also probably illegal in some kind of way. But honestly, with all things considered, your anger is completely justified, and in this situation, your husband is absolutely the only one to blame. I'm convinced that my friend may have cheated on her boyfriend last night, and now I'm considering calling her boyfriend and telling him exactly what happened. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so my best friend and I went together to a live sporting event last night. 3 weeks ago, her long-term boyfriend moved a few states away from us, and next week she is joining him. She was my friend before I met him, but I really like her boyfriend and have been nothing but supportive of their move because I think they make an amazing couple. Tonight, we were gifted tickets to a live sports event. We pre-gamed together, I drove us there, and we made plans with mutual friends to meet them at a local bar after the game. Our original plan was to crash on our mutual friend's couch after the bar because our mutual friend lives right behind the bar that we were going to. But the real problem started once we got to the bar. Her old hookup was there. We'll call him James. James is not his real name. I had actually hung out with her and her boyfriend and James previously. There was no animosity between any of us previously when her boyfriend was still there, so I really didn't mind all of us having drinks with James. So we just had a few shots together and chatted with James. But when the bar was closing, she let me know she wasn't going back to our mutual friend's place, but instead she was going to James's apartment. Unfortunately, I was very, very drunk, so I didn't argue with her on this decision. I woke up at our mutual friend's apartment, and now it's hitting me that they probably hooked up. I'm way closer to her than him, but I still really like and respect him a lot. She's not awake yet, but I'm still not sure what to do. Would it be best for me to say something like, "You need to tell him what happened or I will"? Or should I give him a call and tell him what happened? I'm so scared because they've both been my best friends this past year, and I know this will separate all of us. I don't have many friends, and I know this will break us apart, and honestly at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I think first off, you need to really determine if anything actually happened between your friend and James. Like obviously this does look super sketchy, and yes, your friend does need to tell her boyfriend about what happened, but you really need to figure out if something sketchy happened first. I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would try and insert myself into this relationship. Like think about how messy that would be. Imagine calling this person's boyfriend and being like, "Wow, your girlfriend went to James's house last night. Did you know about that?" Like you don't have a complete picture of what's happened yet. There's literally no clues about whether they spent any kind of quality time together or if she even stayed at his place at all. What if she went back to James's house and decided to stay at a hotel or something like that? What if she did go there and then got a taxi and went home or something like that? What I'm saying is that there's so much nuance to this story, you literally don't have the full picture yet. So I honestly would not jump to some kind of conclusion just because you think that something happened. Now, if you get some kind of confirmed information from your friend, then yeah, maybe it's time to be like, "Hey, you need to talk to your boyfriend." And only then would I feel more inclined to get involved. But even then, if I was in this situation, I would still feel super hesitant about getting involved and getting between this. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would personally be trying to get more information before I jump to any conclusions, because any number of things could have happened last night. And I really think involving yourself in this situation, especially without all the details in place, would seriously be a massive misstep. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for cussing out a woman on the bus as well as making her look stupid after she decides to come at me and my friend on the bus? Here's what happened. So I'm a 21-year-old female, and I recently found out that I am 2 months pregnant. And although I am very excited, the way I found out was really scary. I have an aggressive vasovagal syncope, which just means I faint from time to time because my body is now under constant stress. Other women who have this, they will pass out for 15 to 20 seconds. I, however, have been passing out for longer, and this came off as very concerning. I live in New York, so the trains and buses have seats meant for the disabled and elderly or even pregnant women. And because I'm only 2 months along and not showing, my doctor ordered me to have a bracelet that has a tag that says I have a fainting disorder. I also have a bright red pack with paperwork for me in case I faint on the street and someone needs to call 911. Now, around 2 days ago, I was on a bus with a friend, and when I got on it, it was fairly empty. So I sat down at the very front of the bus where the priority seating chairs are, with my friend standing near me. This specific seat is right behind the driver and has the priority seating sticker right above it. A few stops into my ride, the bus had gotten packed with people. Then a woman got on the bus, and I'm gonna call her Karen. Karen got on the bus and stood near me, leaning on the wall between me and the other seats. At one point, she even sat on my lap, and I lightly pushed her off of me and I said, "Ma'am, could you not sit on me? I do not know you." She didn't say anything, but she did move to the other side of me, and my friend could tell that she was doing it on purpose. At one point, the bus came to an abrupt stop, and this Karen acted like she had no control over herself and used this as an opportunity to shove my friend to the floor and throw her entire body weight on me, elbowing me in the tummy in the process. So I shoved her off of me onto the floor and told my friend that she hit my stomach. The entitled Karen got up from the floor cursing me out, screaming at me that she clearly needed the seat more and that I should give it to her because it's priority seating. My friend then said, "So instead of expressing that through words, you decide to try and sit on a pregnant woman while also throwing your body on her and elbowing her in the stomach. Have you lost your mind?" The entitled Karen then says back, "She's not pregnant, she's just a lazy jerk." Now when she said that to me, I got mad, and I showed off the bracelet that says I have a fainting disorder. I said to her, "Lady, I am pregnant, you absolute moron, and I need to sit down because my pregnancy makes me pass out. The fact that you acted like a child and decided to assault me instead of using your words like a big girl obviously makes you a jerk. Now please, get lost, you absolutely rancid loser." She stood in front of me like she was going to hit me, and my friend got in her face and said, "I dare you, please give me a reason to tase you." The woman eventually got off at the next stop, but pushed my friend on the way out. I went to the hospital because the pain did not subside, and thankfully the baby and I are both alright. My friend and I were telling our other friends about this, and some were on our side, but others said I was a jerk because I was only 2 months pregnant and not showing that I was pregnant. So this person had no way of knowing. I personally don't think that makes the way she acted okay, so clearly I need some outside perspective here. Am I the jerk for this situation, as well as cussing out this woman for the way she treated me? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk here. Your friends are completely wrong. Honestly, how can anyone take that lady's side? She came on that bus and was acting incredibly sketchy from the get-go. I mean, she tried to sit on your lap at one point. That is an immediate red flag, and I would have done the same thing. If someone tries to sit on me, I'm gonna push them off and be like, "Excuse me, I don't know you, get off of me." And that's also just really bad manners in general. Like, this lady seriously couldn't have gone and sat literally anywhere else, or even just sat next to the original poster like a normal human being. Like, is that seriously that hard to do? And then the fact that she purposefully threw her body weight all over you and elbowed you in the stomach, that very clearly wasn't an accident. And I know if I was in your shoes and if I was in that situation, I would have called the police and told the bus driver, "Hey, we gotta figure this out. This lady just straight up elbowed me in the stomach, and I'm not about to take that sitting down." And also, here's the thing. In my opinion, if someone really wants to mess around, then they have every right to also find out what's gonna happen when they do that. So the fact that this lady was getting up in your face and trying to act like, "Oh no, you're not actually pregnant, you're just faking it, you're just lazy," as well as all the myriad of other things she said to you, in my opinion, that's when the gloves come off and you have every right to defend yourself and put her in her place. Because think about the opposite of this situation. If you tried to be nice to her and placate her demands and stand up and get out of the way or anything like that, you very easily could have passed out and injured yourself and your baby. And that's not fair for you or anybody else involved. So in this situation, the way you and your friend handled this is absolutely appropriate. I absolutely would have reacted the exact same way, especially with someone who's being super weird and super threatening towards me. So no, of course not. You are definitely not the jerk. You defended yourself against some crazy lady who clearly had ill intentions. And personally, I would much rather have somebody think that I'm rude instead of me just letting it go and potentially getting injured even more. An entitled Karen demands that I follow her home and hand deliver a tree that she had just bought at our garden nursery. But despite me telling her that I can't follow her home to deliver something personally, she refuses to take no for an answer and even escalates this in a way that I honestly never saw coming. And I am now completely blown away by her entitlement, and I honestly hope she never comes back to our nursery ever again. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that this happened a few days ago and I still can't believe it. I'm a 25-year-old male and I work at a garden nursery. It's a decent size with a shop in the middle and outdoor plants on benches and racks around it, while also having a car park, which is where our entitled Karen and her brother come into play. They drove into our nursery as the owner was walking along it. They beeped at him and started yelling at him, claiming that he had sold them a dead tree to try and plant and make it sprout. And honestly, when I heard that, I was totally confused, and this really was not a good start to my day. They park and walk around for a bit. The brother asks me all sorts of questions and is wanting discounts on plants and starts to basically interrogate me about my life and what I'm doing for work, which I just start giving yes or no answers without actually telling the truth. Eventually, I finally get rid of him and I start walking through, checking that no plants need water. The entitled Karen then spots me and starts to yell at me from about 80 meters away. Now, some people do this, and I go to them even though it annoys me that they basically are calling me like a dog. Maybe they are handicapped and it's hard for them to walk or something like this, but this lady barely speaks English and is currently rambling something at me. And I keep asking her to repeat herself, but finally, I eventually understand that she wants to buy a tree. And the tree she wants to buy is a big weeping cherry. It's about 3 meters tall, including the pot, which is about 90 liters of soil, and it's really heavy. I take the price and I walk with her to the shop, where I ask her if she would like this to be delivered to her home. Now, we have a big truck for deliveries, and it goes out once a week. We never do free deliveries. They don't cost that much money, and the cost is mostly just to cover fuel and time for the driver. Anyways, she says that she doesn't want it delivered, but instead she just points at her SUV. I think to myself, there is no way that tree and massive pot is ever gonna fit in that car. But okay, whatever. I go ahead and I put the sale through. I get the tree trolley and bring the tree to her car. Her brother is in the driver's seat, and she goes and gets into the back seat of the car and just sits there. So I say to her, where do you want me to put it? She then says something to me that honestly blew my mind. She says to me, you can put it in your car and you can follow me. And when she said that, I was thinking to myself, what is she talking about? And it was right about then that things started to really go south. This entitled Karen then repeated herself again. And at this point, I just laughed and I said, what on earth are you talking about? But she just kept repeating it louder and louder. I told her, no, I'm not delivering this tree. You said you don't want it delivered and didn't pay for the delivery. She then said to me, well, I didn't know I needed to pay. How much is it anyways? So I asked her where this tree would be going, and she eventually said it's a suburb about 15 minutes away. So I told her the price, and she said to me, okay, follow me home and I'll pay you then. But I just said, no, that's not how it works. And instead, it would be delivered on Friday when she pays, and that we need to go back inside and get this sale going. After some more time of yelling instructions at me and talking to her brother in another language, I put the tree next to the shop, and she came up to keep yelling at me to deliver the tree and that she would pay me when I followed her home. And at this point, I was done. I yelled at her in the same tone that she had been yelling at me. I said to her, I can't. My car cannot fit that tree. Only the company truck can deliver this. I also can't drive the truck. It is literally impossible for me to deliver the tree even if I wanted to. And guess what? I really don't want to. After a bit more, she finally realized it wasn't going to happen. Now, this entitled Karen had this really weird thing, as did her brother, where they would not talk or interact with the female staff members. So when I took her inside and the other owner was at the register, she literally would not talk to her. I told the owners what was happening and that this lady needed to organize a delivery, and then I just went and walked off. This lady then screams at me, excuse me, and because I was going, I spun around and I snapped back. I said to her, she will get your delivery details, she can help you out. Well, this entitled Karen basically just walked off back to her car, and they just started driving off. We had no delivery payment, we had no number, we didn't even have an address or even her name. I had to run out to their car and stop them. She wouldn't give me her address, and when she finally did, when I looked it up on Google Maps, it simply didn't exist. So this lady had literally paid for a tree and we had no way to get it to her. The following day, the brother rings up wanting to know about the delivery. At this point, it's Thursday, and it's a day before our deliveries. I had told the work group chat what had happened, so everybody knew what was going on if these people came back. Anyways, one of our female staff members answered the phone and tells this guy everything I said and how they need to pay before we can deliver it. He simply wouldn't listen to her, but instead he kept interrupting her and just straight up complaining. It ended up with her telling him to basically get lost and then hanging up. Now, she did this because she thought that we could refund their credit card and never serve them ever again. However, they paid in cash, so another staff member had to call them back, smooth all of this over again, and have him come back in with his van and collect the tree. And honestly, I really hope they never come back. Wow, those people are seriously insane. Like, the way they interacted with customer service was so unacceptable. In my opinion, customer service goes both ways. You have to not only be good with customers, but for the customer themselves, you need to show some semblance of respect for the people who are serving you. Otherwise, you can't expect to get anything done. I can't stand when people act like this and they're shouting at you, they're refusing to listen, and they're demanding that you do it their way. All of that just adds up to a complete headache and something that nobody ever wants to deal with. So for the sake of your store and everybody else in it, I also hope these people never come back either. Because seriously, these people sound like a piece of work. And I know if I was in that situation, I would have wanted to walk away and tell them off as well. If you like Am I the Jerk jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk refuses to give me his ID so that I can complete his purchase of cigarettes, but instead he decides to make a big scene and an absolute fool of himself, causing my coworkers and I to bust up about his stupidity. Here's what happened. So at the grocery store that I work at, our policy is that you have to have an ID for all purchases of cigarettes. If your ID is a driver's license or a state ID, we have to scan the back of it. Well, on this night, I'm running the front end, but currently watching the service desk as well, which is where we keep all of our cigarettes. And lo and behold, a customer comes up to the desk wanting to buy cigarettes. I've interacted with this guy before and he's a pain to deal with, so I already know that this is going to be a rough one. I scan the cigarettes on the register and I ask for his identification. He pulls out his wallet but doesn't take his license out of the holder. I tell him that I need to scan the back of it, and he says that he can't take it out and tells me to just manually enter the date. I tell him that I can't do that because I need to scan the back of it. He says to type the date in again, and I say no again. He then says that he wants to talk to the manager. Now, the store manager is not there, so I page the assistant manager up and let him deal with this guy. The guy talks to him and the assistant manager backs me up, telling him that I need to scan the back of it. This weird guy then proceeds to go off on him, and then he starts to go off on this stupid rant about some dumb stuff. He claims that for his ID, he would pull it out for a state trooper, but he wouldn't pull it out for us, which is him effectively saying that he was lying to me when he said that he couldn't take it out earlier. He also said that whenever he goes to a different store, they type the date in and it's no problem, to which we all wondered why he didn't just go over there and get cigarettes. And then he said that us scanning his ID was infringement on his rights. He ended his rant by threatening to sue us and then storming out of the store, and then we just laughed and went about our business. Now, I know what you're thinking. This has to be it, right? Well, unfortunately, no, because this guy clearly wanted more. About 45 minutes later, we get a phone call. The desk clerk picks it up, and it's from a customer wanting to talk to the store manager. The assistant manager has left, so she pages up our nighttime person in charge, who just so happened to witness the previous interaction. They come up, pick up the phone, listen for a minute, then they point at me and mouth, "This is your guy." Yes, the guy called the store to further complain, claiming that I had singled him out, which is really weird because this guy was throwing a temper tantrum while also being the only customer at the desk. And I guess with that in mind, you probably would draw attention to yourself. This moron then went on to say how I asked him for his ID about 4 times just to try and scan the back of it, and now he wanted to make an appointment with the manager. So the manager's name was given off, while also telling him when the next time our manager would be in the store. And after we hung up the phone, we laughed some more and just went back to work. Fast forward, and when I came back the next day, I asked if anyone had called complaining about me, but they said no. So I guess this weird guy eventually just gave up. Yeah, that guy clearly had some issues. First and foremost, you have to pull your ID out if you want to buy cigarettes. Like, they have to scan the back of it. It's probably like the law where you're from. And if someone seriously can't understand that, then they're the one with the problem. I bet it's one of those point-of-sale systems where the cashier probably couldn't even complete the purchase without scanning the customer's ID in the first place. Like, there's probably so many checks and balances in place just to make sure that nothing slips through the system. And I personally think that's a really good system to have. That way you know you're not giving out any cigarettes to anybody underage. And this guy absolutely knew that. He just wanted to be difficult. I mean, come on, how hard is it to pull out your ID? If this guy really wanted his cigarettes, he would have gone to the other store who just types in his date of birth as well as his other information. Which, by the way, there's a good chance he was just straight up lying. This guy was trying to pull a fast one and he didn't want to conform to the system. So good for you and your assistant manager for having your back. This guy was a complete weirdo. And hopefully for the sake of you and everybody else around you, this guy never comes back ever again. Every day of my job, I get treated like absolute garbage. Customers lie about me and try and scam me out of my tips. And at this point, I'm so completely exhausted and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 20-year-old female and I haven't been socially great in life. And it's mostly because I'm simply just too shy. I was homeschooled for 5 years as a kid and my parents are both introverts. So social skills aren't exactly my forte. I didn't used to hate everything as much as I do now. I'm not mean or anything like that, and I try to be kind and treat others the way I want to be treated. I was made fun of in middle school, like typical middle school stuff. Once I was in later high school, I just kept to myself and avoided all that. I was so glad to graduate and get a job and go to college. College is absolutely awesome. People are so nice and I feel so welcome there. I made friends and I love getting to know my classmates and studying together and just talking. However, my work life hasn't been been as good. At almost every job I've had, someone decides they don't like me and bothers me until I quit. I'll be exhausted and customers will complain I'm not friendly enough and I'm being disrespectful because I may have asked them to repeat themselves if I couldn't hear them. It's so demanding and annoying. It's like high school garbage but on steroids with fully grown adults. People play favorites for no reason. People spin garbage to get you in trouble. Customers complain just to get free stuff. I mean, I had a job where the customers were so nice and it was so easy to be nice to them, but now it's so exhausting. Everyone is so mean. Everyone says maybe I'm the problem. And yeah, maybe I do suck at my job. I've always had coworkers who take my side and reassure me, but it's so hard to feel like I do okay when I have a million voices telling me differently. I told a woman the other day that a promotion we were running is over, and instead we have a different promotion going on. And I was super nice about it, and I tried to help her in any way that I could, but she wrote a review about how I wasn't personable. One thing that irritates me beyond end is how people just don't communicate with me. Even though I'm their server, I will check on them multiple times, and they'll say, yeah, it's great, thank you. And then at the end of their meal, they scream for the manager and then complain, and then they stiff me a tip. Like, seriously, I checked on you, and you said it was great, and you ate the entire meal. How was I supposed to know you weren't happy? At this point, I become so bitter. I just don't care anymore. And as you can tell, I become so upset at everyone and everything. I'm sick of being told to smile. It's so easy to smile when they're kind and normal. My personal issue is it's hard to hide my anxiety and be chipper when someone is so rude to me. I'll be calm and composed, but then they complain about my personality. Most of my coworkers and managers say I'm sweet and I'm appreciated, but working customer service for 4 years has drained me. When I'm at school or at home, I'm myself, but when I clock in, I feel like a zombie. I just feel so drained, but tuition and gas don't pay for themselves, so I guess I'll just have to keep fake smiling for now, even though my work life really sucks. Honestly, I completely understand where you're coming from. Working customer service across the board can really suck. You deal with entitled Kevins and Karens all day. You deal with people trying to treat you like garbage just to get their way. You're gonna find people trying to scam you and get you in trouble on purpose. And sometimes it's all just for no legitimate reason in the slightest. Maybe they're having a bad day, so guess what? You're gonna have a bad day as well. And that's not fair at all. Like, that literally is so unfair for you. You work so hard to do a good job. You try your very best to be a good customer service worker, only to then get stabbed in the back by coworkers as well as customers alike. And trust me, I completely understand where you're coming from. I know one trick that really worked for me when I was more involved in customer service is just to take the stance that, you know what, none of these people know me and they definitely have no idea the struggles I go through every day. Their bad attitude is not a reflection of my customer service. I know that I'm doing a good job because, you know what, my manager and my coworkers say I am. And those are honestly the only people I need to impress. So when a customer comes in and they're treating you like garbage, just remember that it's all on them. It's not on you. They are clearly the ones with a problem. And honestly, no matter how hard you work, someone is always going to be upset. Am I the jerk for changing my plans last minute and abandoning my daughter and her husband after they invited themselves on my vacation with my wife for our 40th anniversary? Here's what happened. My wife and I have always dreamed of celebrating our 40th anniversary with a luxurious vacation. Just the two of us reliving the romance of our early years. We had it all planned out for years now, and we were excited beyond words. Well, enter our adult daughter by the name of Jane. Jane and her husband caught wind of our plans and promptly invited themselves and their 2 children along. They have a 9-year-old female and a 5-year-old male. I originally put my foot down and told them that this trip was just for us, which did upset her some, but my wife has a hard time saying no to Jane, as she is the youngest of our children and our only daughter, and she didn't want to hurt her feelings, so she reluctantly agreed to let them join. I wasn't thrilled about it at the time, but I wanted to make my family happy, and I knew my wife was also okay with the idea of a family trip. Even if she was heartbroken, we wouldn't get a romantic trip, so we just went along with it. The place we were originally going was not child-friendly, so we changed course and decided on an all-inclusive, family-friendly resort. We paid for the resort and our grandchildren's plane tickets. Jane and her husband only had to pay for their own airfare. Now here's where things get a little bit complicated. As the vacation got closer, I started having a change of heart. I realized that our 40th anniversary was a once-in-a-lifetime milestone, and I wanted to honor it in a way that was true to our original plans. My wife and I might not be able to afford a trip like this again for quite some time, and it's something that we always wanted to do. So without consulting anybody, I switched our tickets last minute to go to the romantic destination that my wife and I had originally planned for. I did not tell Jane Jane or her husband. I didn't even tell my wife until the day before our flight left, which was a day before Jane's flight left for their vacation. It wasn't an easy decision, and I feel incredibly guilty about it. But I wanted our 40th anniversary to be special. I wanted it to be the intimate celebration we had always hoped for. We called Jane after we landed to tell her, and she was extremely upset to say the least. She thought of the idea that we were going to look after our grandkids so she and her husband could have some alone time, and now that I abandoned her, they would have to do it all themselves. I hung up on them when my son-in-law started shouting, and my wife and I just enjoyed the rest of our trip. They came back this same day we did, but have not answered any of our text messages, and Jane seems to be completely ignoring me. My wife told me she vastly preferred our trip to the family trip that we would have taken, but she still doesn't like how Jane is mad at us and wants me to apologize. But you know what? I'm not sure I want to after learning that Jane and her husband were using us for free babysitting and a free trip, but I do feel like I should just keep the peace. So am I the jerk for changing our trip destination last minute and leaving Jane and her family to fend for themselves? What should I do? You are not the jerk at all. This is honestly so hilarious to me because clearly Jane and her husband had ulterior motives. They thought they had free babysitters for a vacation that they had already imposed upon. Like they literally invited themselves. How much of a dirtbag do you have to be to do that on someone else's vacation? Not to mention the fact that they weren't going to watch their kids at all. They were going to throw them at you and your wife and be like, okay, you're going to watch them while we enjoy your 40th anniversary. Like, no, I don't think so. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. There's no way I would have gone on that vacation, and I would have done it the exact same way as well. Like, look, I get it. You should have said no the first time and left it at that. Let them feel bad, let them be angry, whatever. But you know what? With all things considered, you had to do exactly what you needed to do so that your wife and yourself could enjoy your time together. So no, you're not the jerk. Jane and her husband are clearly incredibly selfish, and going on that vacation with them would have been a massive mistake. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that she's no longer invited to our house after she slowly but surely tried to take over our guest bedroom? Here's what happened. So I'm a 27-year-old female, and my husband is also 27, and we got married a year back. We had been dating for 10 years, and most of his family knew about us. I went to his sister's wedding because I was invited, and it was a nice experience. I have grown up to be very social and career-oriented and really valued education. My husband is the same, and that's how we really connected with each other. My sister-in-law, however, has a different mindset. She got married at a very young age and chose to have a family while also choosing not to pursue a college degree. However, she is a complete brat and has always been said yes for everything. For example, she had a 3-day wedding in Italy with over 120 guests. She doesn't hate me, but doesn't love me either. And trust me, the feelings are mutual. We just don't connect. We recently got a new house and threw a housewarming party for all of his family, and everyone loved the house. We have an extra guest bedroom just in case, and his sister absolutely loved the house, which she said about 50 times, and said that she would move some of her daughter's stuff here in the extra room because we have too much space and she doesn't want to carry it whenever she comes. Now, we live in New York and she comes from New Mexico. I really didn't get the logic and politely declined and said we have a lot of guests coming every now and then, and we do not have spare space for her daughter's clothing or her toys. Now, she wasn't happy about that, but honestly, I didn't care. It's been 4 months since we bought the house, and she's come a total of 53 days. And yes, I absolutely kept count. Most of the time, she comes unannounced, claiming that she was visiting someone or she was in the neighborhood. I mean, what kind of person would fly from New Mexico to New York just to be in the neighborhood? Anyways, I slowly started to realize that she had started putting up her pictures and redecorating our guest bedroom, and I honestly lost my mind when I saw this. I told my husband, and he said I'm overthinking it and that she is just trying to be friends with me. When she left last week, I packed a box of all of her things, which she very conveniently forgot in our guest bedroom, and I shipped it over to her place. She got very angry and eventually called me and started screaming at me. I told her to stop overreacting and stop considering our house as hers and that she's no longer welcome to come over. I told my husband everything and that I would not entertain her anymore. He agreed to what I had said and told his sister that she needs to stop doing this or she is no longer going to be welcome. Well, she called my in-laws and literally every person that we know and told them that we were being jerks. Our phones have been buzzing with text messages and calls with everybody saying how inconsiderate we are and that what we did was really wrong. But I told everyone if they're seriously that interested, they need to keep her in their house and stop bothering me. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your sister-in-law is being weird. She's coming to your house uninvited, and it seems like she's slowly taking over that guest bedroom, all without trying to discuss it with you first. That is really weird in my opinion. Now, I don't know if she's in some kind of distress situation or anything like that, but regardless of the circumstance, it really is inappropriate for her to be acting that way. Like, you don't just do that to somebody else's house. You have no right to do that, and honestly, you need to ask people first. So with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all. After all, this is your house, and if she doesn't like it, then she can stay with another family member instead of trying to force her way into your house. My entitled aunt invites herself to my private dinner in celebration of my little sister's accomplishments, and after ordering the most expensive food items on the menu at the restaurant we were going to, they then refused to pay for their portion of the bill, claiming that I said I was going to pick it up from the very beginning. But as a result, I refused to pay for their bill, and now I'm being called a massive jerk for not footing their bill. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I will start off with saying that I have an aunt on my dad's side of the family. She's 50 years old and has 5 kids ranging from 20 all the way until 12 years old. She's always been known to be a freeloader and taken advantage of situations and people. For example, one time my dad and I were planning on going to the drive-in, and my dad stupidly told her. She asked if her kids could be included too, and I felt so angry because this happened every time me and my dad had something fun planned when it was just me and him, and that is just one of many instances that have happened in my life. So hopefully you can get the idea. So anyways, last week I wanted to celebrate my little sister from getting her driver's permit, and I wanted all of our family to go to Olive Garden. And by that, I mean all of us who live in the same home. I told everyone to clear their schedules for Friday afternoon because I don't want anyone to feel left out. Well, that's where I messed up, because my dad told my aunt and told her that she could tag along without telling me first. We showed up to Olive Garden at around 4:30 p.m. and I asked to be seated at a table for 5 people. And the people I had in mind were me, my dad, my 2 sisters, and my grandfather. But that's when my dad stepped in and asked if we could instead get a table for 12. I asked why, and that's when he told me exactly what he did. I was so angry, especially because my aunt and my little sister have a history, but I didn't think much of it because I wasn't expecting what was coming up. We're finally sitting down, and around 30 minutes later, she shows up with all of her kids. We eventually ordered, and she kept ordering expensive dishes and lots of drinks, and I was kind of in awe considering that she lives off of food stamps, which honestly I don't shame anyone who does, but she kept ordering like she was Scrooge McDuck on just another Tuesday evening. The bill eventually comes up, and I asked for her to split it. She says in such a grating voice, "What do you mean split the bill? I thought you were paying for us." And that's when it clicked. She only came along to get free food. I immediately glared at my dad, who shifted the blame straight to me. He said, "Why would you offer to pay and then not follow through?" I thought to myself, oh, I don't know, maybe because I wasn't expecting to pay for another 6 people. I ended up asking the waitress how much it would be because I didn't want to ruin the mood and my little sister's accomplishment. Well, the bill came out to about $557. Excluding what me and my family ate, namely my dad, my 2 sisters, and my grandpa, it would only be about $243. And here's the part where things get a little bit spicy. I outright refused to pay for her and her kids' meals, as I felt 2 of them were still kids, but I never invited her myself, let alone agreed to pay for her entire bill. My dad is now calling me a jerk because he had to pay for it with his credit card. But here's the thing, I don't think I did anything wrong. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for not picking up the entire bill, especially since I wasn't planning on paying for my aunt and her kids in the first place? What should I do? There is no way you are the jerk here. Like seriously, how is this hard for anybody to understand? For starters, you were not planning on having them come along for your dinner. You were just trying to celebrate your little sister's accomplishment. This was supposed to be something simple that all of you could enjoy. And then here comes your aunt trying to spoil the mood and completely ruin the evening. And that's not fair for you at all. And it sounds like you were willing and ready to pay for quite a bit of this meal. Like you had money set aside so that you could drop hundreds of dollars on the bill and take care of everything. But in my opinion, the second your dad invited your aunt as well as her stupid kids, at that moment, that promise of paying for the bill was completely out the window. You were not prepared to pay for that many people. You were not told ahead of time, and in fact, he told you in line when you're about to sit down. I mean, seriously, how awful is that? If I was in your shoes, that would be the last time I would ever trust my dad with my plans ever again. He's clearly just gonna tell his sister, and that's gonna spoil the mood altogether.
altogether. And the fact that this aunt wasn't willing to pay for anything that they ordered, and they were also so willing to get all this food for the night under the assumption that you would pay for it is so disgusting. For context, the original poster is 18 years old. Like, they're saving up, but they don't have that kind of money. It is unacceptable for them to try and take advantage of you and then get upset when you can't pony up for the bill. So no, you are not the jerk here. Your aunt is in the wrong and your dad is absolutely in the wrong as well. And honestly, if he wanted to invite them without telling you first, then he's the one who is absolutely responsible for their bill. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Would I be the jerk if I told my brother what his wife and kids were saying about me while he wasn't there? Because right now I'm incredibly hurt, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I have 3 kids. I have a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old. Their dad left when the oldest was 5 years old because we aren't worth the stress. I was terrified because we were about to be homeless, but I managed to find a job. I had not seen my family since they cut me off for getting pregnant as a teenager, but my older brother found me and made me move in with him and his family. We live in their basement rent-free, and it's more than enough. I feel a little awkward about his wife and his kids. He has 2 preteen daughters, but they're always nice to me and my kids when we see each other. Well, it was my brother's birthday yesterday, and we were all upstairs having dinner. My brother left the house to get something, so he wasn't home for a little bit. My son accidentally spilled some juice on himself, so I took him to get cleaned. He then got all worked up and tired, so I quickly put him to bed. My daughters came down as well, and I sat with them for a tiny bit until they fell asleep. After that, I was going back upstairs when I heard my sister-in-law and my nieces talking about me. I heard one of the daughters say, "Did she really get pregnant at 15? And then the mom responded by saying, "Yes, and look how she ended up. She's lucky your dad is so kind because you know she was pretty much homeless before we took her in. You guys better not get pregnant. I don't want you ending up like her." I mean, my situation is pretty pathetic, and it's true. I'm lucky that my brother found me. And you know what? I was going to ignore her, but then she started telling the girls my entire life story. Again, this is okay, but she was telling them some very embarrassing details and making me out to be a horrible human being. She told them I did all sorts of substances while I was pregnant, which is definitely not true, and she told them I probably had a bunch of mental illnesses, which also I don't. She also said that I was probably going to abandon my kids or give them up if my brother had not found me. Her kids both said something like, "Oh yeah, I can see her doing that. She doesn't seem entirely all there." Now let me tell you something. It really hurt to hear how badly they thought of me, and I regret telling my brother and sister-in-law what happened to me. I know I'm not a role model and probably should be ashamed of myself, but I didn't think they thought so lowly of me. I just went to bed and thought about ignoring it, but now I'm wondering if I should tell my brother. I mean, it's childish and petty of me, right? I mean, I feel like it would be pretty petty to go crying to my brother about his wife and his kids. I just don't know if I can look at any of them in the eye anymore, but I don't want to risk being kicked out. So honestly, would I be the jerk if I told my brother what they said and potentially start a fight or an argument or at least stress them out? What should I do? What an awful situation to be stuck in. Like, honestly, you had nowhere to go, you were completely destitute, and you thought going to your brother would be a good place for you to stay, only to then find out that your sister-in-law and her stupid kids are stabbing you in the back. And that's exactly what they're doing, by the way. They're turning against you and treating you like garbage for literally no reason. Like, seriously, how dare they throw dirt in your face when your life couldn't get any more complicated? The fact that they would say that while you're not around, especially from your sister-in-law, all under the assumption that this is some kind of like teaching moment for her kids, that in my opinion is so disgusting. And I think above anything else, you now know that this is not somewhere you want to stay long term. Because just look at the way they're acting towards you and your kids. They seriously said, "Oh yeah, she would probably get rid of her kid if she wanted to," while also claiming that you're on some kind of substances and that you're mentally ill. It's not like your life ended up this way on purpose. It really does sound like you had a bad hand in life and things really went south. And if it was up to your sister-in-law and her stupid kids, they would probably convince anybody around them that you're a bad person, even though you're not. Their behavior is so reprehensible and it's so disgusting. And if I was in your shoes, I would start the process of getting my own place, save up money and find somewhere else to live. You do not need that in your life. I can't really say whether you should or shouldn't approach anybody about this situation. I mean, this really could lead to some weird consequences, such as you getting kicked out before you're ready to move out, or even just causing tension in the household household. And it all really sucks because they're talking garbage about you in their home. I mean, they own it. This is their place. They could tell you to get lost at the drop of a hat. And while I don't think they're that cruel, I think that's a possibility you need to think about in your head when you go through this situation. But I know for me personally, I would be finding a new place to live. Something that I can rent so that I can have some place for myself and my kids. So honestly, hopefully this all works out for you. And hopefully if you do decide to talk to him, I would just make sure first that this wouldn't jeopardize my living situation, especially if you don't have anywhere else you could possibly go to. Today, I messed up by giving myself an awful lopsided haircut. And trust me, this is definitely the reason why I didn't have a third date with a girl I was interested in. Here's what happened. So for full disclosure, this happened actually a few years ago during COVID, but I felt it was a funny story to reflect on now. Anyways, I had a date with a girl and we're gonna call that girl Kate. Kate is not her real name. It was locked down at the time, and so the dates people were going on were just socially distanced walking dates. I met Kate on a dating app, and we had been on one fairly nice and civil walking date, walking around the mountainous region of the city we lived in at the time. And because it went well, we decided to arrange for a second date. Now, I realized by the time the second date came around that I really needed a haircut. It was in the middle of the pandemic though, so no barbers were open at all. About 7 to 8 months earlier in the first lockdown, my ex had given me a buzz cut, and I figured I would just do the same this time. For some reason though, I left doing this until the morning of the date. So that morning I woke up about 3 hours before the date and began shaving off the hair from the top of my head with an electric razor. The electric razor was a cheap rechargeable razor. My hair grows back really quickly, so at this point I had quite long floppy hair all around. After starting straight away by lopping off the front right portion of my head, the razor started to die. I thought to myself, okay, no reason to worry. I can just do this with a razor plugged into the wall. Well, that morning, I learned that most electronic rechargeable razors, especially the cheap ones, actually use up more energy than they get back from being on charge, which means if it's low on charge, it still will not work when plugged in. Now, at this point, I had lopped off the long part of the front right of my hair. It was not a stylish look. My roommate at the time, we'll call him Jake, also not his real name, he found it absolutely hilarious. We decided we would leave the razor to charge for an hour and try again later, making this incredibly close to the date I would have with Kate. After an hour or so, we tried again. The issue was, though, that the razor, without much charge, was very slow and didn't work very well. With a guard on the razor, that gives you the exact length you want for the cut, but it struggled to cut anything off when its power was dying. We managed to lop a little more off of it, but even still, it was so lopsided. Jake then had the idea that he would take the guard off and just carefully try and cut some of the back off without getting close to the scalp. Well, the obvious happened. He ended up slipping and shaved a huge section straight down the scalp, and he found this absolutely hilarious. At this point, I had run out of time, and I needed to leave for the date. What I had at this point was that most of the right side of the front of my head was shaved to about 1 to 2 centimeters. The left side was completely uncut though, and at the back of my head, it was also mostly uncut except for one huge chunk that was completely shaved down to the scalp. I remember optimistically thinking, okay, maybe she will think this is some kind of punk hairstyle. Well, she definitely didn't. I wore a hat to the date, but it was obvious something crazy was going on underneath. So I told her the story of what happened and hoped it would come across as endearing and charming. I offered to take off the hat and we could have a laugh about it, but unfortunately though, Kate really didn't want me to take the hat off, and I could tell that she was definitely embarrassed to be seen with me. It was at this point that I realized that actually maybe she wasn't right for me. The person I wanted to be with and to spend time with would have found such a situation as quite funny and amusing, and would love to joke around about the comedic predicament that I had found myself in that morning. Now look, I have nothing against Kate. She is completely entitled to her preferences, but at that point, I guess I realized that we aren't really right for each other. So we had an amicable second date, and as you could probably guess, there was no third date. She probably thought something like, God, I don't want to be seen with someone so silly and goofy like this guy. Which, you know what, if she thought that, then fair enough. I personally realized that I would rather be with someone who would enjoy these things, instead of being ashamed to even be near me. Yeah, Kate sounds like a giant stick in the mud. Like seriously, how can she not find this hilarious? Here you are on a date with someone and they have like an honest moment where they're like, yeah, I messed up big time. I shaved my head wrong and now it looks like garbage. You want to point and laugh with me? Like something like that really does go a long way in my opinion, and it brings you down to like a human level where you can really connect with them. Like if I went on a date with someone and they said something along those lines, or even something within that same vein of thought, and they're laughing as well, then I absolutely would join in and start laughing. Not at their expense, but maybe just at the situation in general. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, honestly, this really shouldn't have been that big of a deal. So seriously, you didn't do anything wrong. Sure, you messed up in like shaving your head by accident, I totally get that. But you know what? At least you learned that Kate is really not a nice person. This was clearly somebody who's incredibly stuck up and very entitled, and is clearly someone who's like a giant red flag. Like, talk about dodging a train. Because truly, if a girl stops dating you because of a bad haircut, then trust me, this is not someone that you want to have a relationship with. My boyfriend has horrible anger management problems, and as a result, he is always having some kind of tantrum or yelling match with me over the dumbest things possible. And at this point, I'm so tired of dealing with this, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I first want to start off by saying that I love my boyfriend. We've been together for 5 years. We each have our own place, and we don't live together for several reasons. But one of the reasons is his anger issues. He is wonderful a lot of the time, but the other part, he is freaking out about this, that, and the other. Everyday inconveniences throw him for a loop. He deals with stress really badly, and yet he seems to look for ways to make his life more stressful. Now, for the sake of brevity, I'll just get to the latest issue. Due to things that we both have going on in our lives, I've only been able to spend Saturday night through to Sunday afternoon at his place. However, each time for months now, something will happen. For example, last night I went over, I was doing stuff in the kitchen like general cleanup and stuff like that, mostly because he's not really the best at keeping things tidy. He was opening the fridge, and when he did, a pizza box fell out. He then started with the usual amount of swearing. I assumed he had it under control, and I turned to go back to the dishwasher. And then, at that moment, a bunch of soda fell out of the fridge and onto the floor. Now, I don't know exactly what caused this, but one of the sodas spilled inside the fridge, while a couple of them fell on the floor and spilled there as well. And sure, I get it, that's really frustrating. However, he starts shouting. He starts swearing and screaming at me to hurry up, demanding that I help him out and get this done, as if this is some kind of huge emergency. He's screaming at me saying, "Move it, why do you always move in slow motion?" Stuff like that. I think I almost have PTSD from dealing with this stuff all the time. I mean, I end up shouting back at him, because unfortunately this is not out of the ordinary. But with him, it's to the point where I can't stand being yelled at and blamed for stuff that I didn't do. I also can't understand how everything is always turned into a crisis. Even just opening up the fridge door. He's either incredibly clumsy or he has incredibly bad luck. So then we're both shouting at each other and saying angry things, and then at that point, I just grabbed my purse and I left. He texts me apologizing and asking me to please come back, begging me to not leave and ruin our weekend. But you know what? I drove home anyways. And after doing that, I feel bad and guilty. Like, I already know he's like this and under stress and has anger issues, and I should just go out for a few minutes until we can both calm down, but instead I run away, making everything worse. And now we don't get to spend the weekend together at all. I have no idea what to do anymore. This scenario has played out several times over the past few months. He never learns how to control his temper, and I never learn not to engage and just step out until we cool down. I'm wondering if couples therapy would potentially help us in this situation, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your boyfriend sounds like a piece of work. And before I dissect the way this man acts, I first off want to say that none of this is your fault. The fact that you left and got out of that situation is honestly a really good thing, because in my opinion, someone being verbally aggressive like that, especially in the way that you're describing, very quickly becomes physical before you realize it. So escaping the situation is honestly not a bad idea, and that's not your fault in the slightest. But seriously, let's talk about your boyfriend real quick, because this guy does not sound like a good person. He doesn't sound like a good boyfriend, regardless of how much you try to claim you love him. Because you know what? If he loved you in return, he wouldn't scream at you about everything that happens in his life. Like, look at the way he acted with the refrigerator. Like, first off, you don't live there. It's not like you stacked the pizza boxes wrong. This guy did that himself. He's the one that probably put it in there incorrectly, and then when it inevitably just falls out of the fridge, he tries to shift the blame on you. And that is so unacceptable. You didn't stack it like that. You didn't cause the soda to spill out all over the floor. Like, the way he's treating you is so inappropriate. So in my opinion, that makes him the problem and not you. You have not done anything wrong, and I really think that you didn't ruin anything about your weekend, but instead he's the one that ruined it with his awful attitude. Like, think about it for a second. You're constantly being yelled at, and in this post you're acting like this is perfectly ordinary in terms terms of like a relationship, and you're almost trying to blame yourself for the way your boyfriend is reacting. I don't know about you, but this is not someone I would even be able to spend any time with. He sounds like a complete basket case. Sure, he probably has some redeeming qualities when he's not screaming at you, but how on earth can you even begin to focus on any of those if he's acting like a complete psychopath all the other times you're around him? I honestly don't know how you put up with this for 5 years, and I know for a fact I would not be able to put up with this kind of behavior. So truly, I wish you the absolute best of luck with this relationship, because it does not sound like a healthy one in the slightest. And also, as a final note, I don't care how much stress he's under. This guy has no right to talk to you like that and blow up on you about the smallest things going wrong in his life, because what he's doing is absolutely a choice. And in my opinion, I do not believe that you should have to be an emotional and verbal punching bag for all the problems that he refuses to have addressed. An entitled jerk demands that I give him my bike that I was riding, all because I was too short to ride it. But when I say no, this guy freaks out, demanding that I give him the bike, all while his girlfriend tries to hold him back from fighting me. And I have honestly never been more freaked out about an encounter in my life. Here's what happened. So this story takes place a couple of years ago, back when I was still in middle school. So every Sunday, I would go to the flea market in the morning with my grandfather and my cousin who was in high school at the time. We will leave the market early because there wasn't anything to buy or catch our eye, so we either went to my grandfather's house or my cousin's house to hang out. And on that day, it just so happened to be my cousin's. And so we're just hanging out. We're talking, playing video games, that sort of thing, all the way until we got bored. So we thought we would go outside and ride bikes, with my cousin having his bike in the garage. My cousin is tall and I'm shorter than him by a good bit, so the bike that I was given to use was a little bit too tall for me. So I had to do that thing where I hopped on it just to even ride it in the first place. And trust me, this fact will be important later. So we're riding around and my cousin wanted something from the store, so we started heading in that direction. He was ahead of me and he went over the median from where the store's at that has a tree and some plants on a concrete curb. He gets over just fine and went into the store, but I didn't think that I could make it without falling on accident. So I got off the bike, not fully off the side of it, but with the rail between my legs as I'm trying and struggling to anyone who sees me to move over the curb. And I guess in this instant, this action made me a massive target to the entitled guy that was coming up. I suddenly hear over my shoulder this guy start to say to me, "Hey, give me your bike, you're too short for it." Now at this point I look at him and I see a guy with his girlfriend, and he definitely looks around the same age as my cousin, but he is a bit shorter than him. He then repeats what he said, but this time around I say some sarcastic remark or something that clearly he just didn't like, because the next thing I see is him getting mad to the point where he's about to walk over to where I'm at and probably beat me up and take my bike. But suddenly his girlfriend stops him and kind of pleads to him and literally has to pull on his arm and walk him away from doing something stupid. And the worst part about it is that I can see based on her reaction that this isn't something new to her. Eventually, after that act of aggression, they eventually walk away. Now, I eventually make it over the curb and I wait for my cousin outside, and thankfully it's not long before he exits the store. And that's when I see something that honestly blows my mind. As we're leaving, it's the same guy coming up towards us, but this time it's without his girlfriend, with his hood also pulled up just to try and hide his identity. But you know what? I see his face, and I recognize him in all of the same clothing that he's wearing. This guy rides past us on his own bike, but this time I'm not alone, and he focuses on my cousin who's next to me. Now, in my opinion, I think that this guy probably went back to try and finish what he wanted to do, namely to get the bike and try and beat me up in the process. But then he was having second thoughts when seeing my cousin, and knowing that if he wanted a fight, he's probably going to lose. Now, from that point on, I didn't bother paying attention to him, and we make our way back to my cousin's house, with me eventually telling my aunt and grandma about what happened. My aunt, who looks very concerned, says that I shouldn't let anyone stay in the house. And honestly, to this day, I'm still not sure what would have happened if my cousin wasn't with me, because I'm willing to bet that this encounter would have been awful. Yeah, that is a scary situation. Can you imagine riding with your older cousin just to go up to the store and maybe get, I don't know, like some sodas or something like that, and then suddenly this guy comes up and he's like, "Hey, give me your bike. You're too short for it. I should have it." Like, what in the world are you talking about, buddy? I'm not gonna give you my bike. It's not even my bike. It's my cousin's. Like, first of all, this guy sucks at being a thief. I mean, who in their right mind would be like, "Hey, can I steal from you?" and then get upset when someone's like, "No, idiot, get away from me." And I think the original poster's right. This guy absolutely was coming back without his girlfriend around just so he could rough up the original poster. That's absolutely what was gonna happen, but then thankfully he bailed once he saw this cousin riding with with this guy. So honestly, good for you for having your cousin to back you up. This seriously could have been a scary situation, and I worry that if your cousin wasn't around, this very easily could have gotten ugly. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job has not scheduled me for almost 3 weeks now, and now I'm at the point where I'm considering filing for unemployment, and overall, I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So, I used to enjoy my job at a restaurant, that is, until new management came in. Shortly after, I experienced some very inappropriate treatment from a customer, if you know what I mean. And I'm talking something you absolutely cannot do to somebody when they're trying to do their job, and hopefully you can catch my drift. Now, although the customer was initially talked to, they ended up doing it again, leading to a 1-month ban. During this time, I noticed several things. For starters, my hours were reduced, and some of my coworkers seemed to have a problem with me. Also, the only time I had table complaints was when I was oversat, and no apologies were given in the slightest. Furthermore, my hours were changed from the morning until the evening without my consent, and I faced issues regarding my occasional lateness, all because I'm a student, and lower managers were very aware that I would be late at times. The general manager brought up lateness and wrote me up, even for being 1 minute late. Now, this general manager also suggested I might work better alone after disclosing that I'm autistic, even though I had been willing to improve. I only received write-ups for refusing to work on Labor Day, despite being aware that most restaurants don't offer time and a half. And not only that, but also for being late in the past. These write-ups occurred after the problems I had with the customers, and it was all within a month of that customer being banned. And now I haven't been scheduled for almost 3 weeks, and I haven't been informed of my employment status at all. Now here's the thing, I never had any table complaints about me, besides the few times they oversat me, which of course they wouldn't ever apologize for, but would instead just say that I need better time management. And we're talking like 8 to 10 tables inside and outside the restaurant. Well, as I said, my hours started getting very awful and they started getting reduced. And when they changed my hours to the evening instead of the morning, it honestly threw me for a loop. I mean, I'm a student who lives in the cities, and I was allowed to be late to work, but it's been a conversation between me and my lower manager, and he's the only one that understands. But the general manager wasn't aware of this conversation and decided to bring it up anytime I've ever been late since he's worked there, even down to being 1 minute late, which honestly really shocked me. Now, his excuse is that he brought this up because I was late that day, but I told the manager I have class that gets out very late on some days, and it's honestly not super consistent, so it's hard to get here on time. And truly, when this started happening, I was taken by surprise because I've never been told about this, so to be written up for it essentially made me feel a bit attacked. But you know what? I did acknowledge it, and I fixed my schedule to try and be more on time. And it just seemed odd to only look at me when other servers are notorious for being 30 minutes late every single day. My worst day was 15 minutes, which isn't an excuse, but all those days I have had a conversation about it. And when it comes to me being autistic, I honestly couldn't believe that they wanted me to work by myself. I disclosed that I was autistic in private, and he said to me that I need to communicate better, which I agreed with, and I've tried to work on it. Any issue that is brought up to me, I try to work on. I'm always willing to improve. I honestly think they have some sort of dislike towards me, as I did ask many blunt questions, and management found it rude. They thought I was questioning their authority, which is me truly wanting to understand what's going on in any given scenario. I obviously know they're trying to push me out, especially since they were hiring while I was still working there. But I don't want to quit because it's obviously what they want. Honestly, I'm at a loss. I'm not being scheduled at all, but I'm also not being told that I'm fired. It's been almost 3 weeks now, and I'm going to try and file for unemployment. Because honestly, this is all so sketchy, and I now just don't know what to do. It really does seem like your job is trying to push you out. That is so unfortunate. Here they are not even scheduling you for what, 3 weeks? Like, that is so unacceptable. How can you go from working every single week and then all of a sudden not be scheduled for almost a month? Like, I honestly don't blame you for saying, you know what, I'm gonna file for unemployment. Like, I do not need this for 1 second. It also seems like this is a case of retaliation, and I'm not entirely sure about like the details about it, but that wouldn't be a bad thing to investigate. Like, they really did decrease your hours and treat you like garbage ever since that one customer was really awful towards you. So with all things considered, I don't blame you for wanting to go for unemployment. These people are not scheduling you properly, and they're honestly treating you like garbage. And in my opinion, you do not deserve this in the slightest. Today, I messed up by hooking up with a foreigner who also has a girlfriend. And now I feel completely awful for the other girl. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened.
happened. So for reference, I'm a female first-year college student at a coastal college in the eastern United States. I was walking downtown one Friday night with my friends after leaving a music venue drunk when I make eye contact with a guy, but for an abnormally long amount of time. I mean at least 10 seconds. I notice that he's cute and perhaps a little too old for me, but I'm a little drunk and I'm feeling bold. So I turn around and I walk up to him. I ask him for his Snapchat because that's the easiest way to talk to someone, and he just mutters to me and says, "I'm from Germany though." I tell him that I don't mind and I'd like to get to know him. He says okay, and we exchange our Snapchat information. For a few days, he did not reach out, so I figured that he wasn't interested. So I think to myself, okay, whatever. But he eventually reached out and we began talking frequently. We tell each other all about each other, and this is where he tells me that he's studying in Germany to be a doctor. He talks about how he's on tour in the United States, while also talking about his hopes and dreams and his family, and I do all the same. I start to feel a sense of closeness to him, all before we even met up again. One night, he asked me to hang out with him and his friends before he left for a new city to visit in America, and I happily said yes. However, he is 23, and so are all of his friends, so he suggested bar hopping. Well, long story short, I get my fake ID taken, I get extremely embarrassed, but he decides to come up to my dorm with me. We talk for a while, and things eventually lead to something else, if you know what I mean. We end up spending the entire night telling each other so much about our lives and being extremely vulnerable with each other. Well, he had to leave the next morning for his flight, also he could go to the next US city on his list, and that's when he left. At this point, I'm left at home, and I also feel a little sad that it came to an end, but I do feel rather content, realizing that this was a one-night type of thing and I shouldn't become obsessed. I mean, I'm not delusional. I knew that he probably did this kind of stuff with a bunch of girls all the time. He is subjectively a very attractive man, and with that accent, I know other girls ate that up as well. But overall, I was still happy about it. Now, I expected him to not reach out much while he was on tour, and he didn't for a lot of it, but he would occasionally send me pictures of Vegas or San Francisco or even Hollywood Boulevard, or text and ask how I'm doing. He then told me that he's going to make a detour from his plans and come back to my town to see me. Now, obviously, this is very exciting for me, and I say yes, and we make arrangements for him to come and stay the night. So he flies back to me and comes over. And when he showed up, he greeted me with a necklace that he bought while he was gone. And it's one that matched his own necklace, and he even topped it off by putting the necklace on me. We again talk about our lives in depth. We talk about our future as well as his tour. We ended up staying up until about 4 in the morning just talking. And I couldn't tell you everything we discussed, but it was very intimate, and he is an extremely romantic person. Like when we woke up, he watched me get ready, telling me how beautiful I am and how upset he is to have to say goodbye, kissing me in between every step of my morning routine. Right before he left, he pulled me back into bed and told me to never settle for less, that whoever ends up with me is an extremely lucky man, and that I'm beautiful, intelligent, funny, and kind. He told me that he wants to one day fly me out to his home and show me where he lives. It was a very sweet moment for me, and I started crying because I don't think anyone's ever told me such nice things before in my life. I know though that men will say anything to get to do you know what, but this felt real, at least to some degree. We hug and kiss and tell each other to have a great life, and then he walked away. Later that day, he removed me as a friend from his Snapchat, and while I am pretty upset about this, again, I realized that this was not going to be a long-term situation, so eventually I was okay. I brushed it off as a cool meetup with an awesome person that I was lucky to meet, and it was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime person that I'll never forget. This goes on for about a month, and neither of us are reaching out at all. Fast forward to last night, and some guy adds me by search on Snapchat, and it's not a name I recognize, but I accept it anyways. He sends me a snap, and to my shock, it was the German, saying that he misses me so much. I then ask him why he's contacting me on a Snapchat of a person's name that isn't his. He then sends me paragraphs explaining that this was a fake Snapchat, that he has a long-term girlfriend back in Germany, and they are not doing well, and he wasn't sure if he really wanted to be with her. He told me that spending time with me was really great, and it was really refreshing for him, but he will never forget me, and I was more special to him than I realize. But he doesn't want her to find out, so he will be talking to me on this Snapchat because he doesn't want to lose contact with me. Now, after he told me this, I didn't say much. I just told him that while I do feel the same way, I feel that what he did was wrong, and I wasn't sure what to say. He said, "I know, sleep well, and when you wake up, we will talk about this a little bit more." And seriously, I'm not sure what else there is to talk about. I mean, there is an Atlantic Ocean and a girlfriend dividing us. It's not like we're about to get married, but he was very special to me, and I'm ashamed to admit that I do want to talk to him more. I mean, I love the plot. He
did block me on Instagram, and I can only assume so that his girlfriend can't find out. Now, I will probably stop talking to him and write this off as a crazy thing that happened to me in college, but I am so terribly sad. I feel guilty and terrible for the other girl in Germany, but he was the most memorable person I've ever met. Wow, that guy is super shady. Let me just tell you straight up, that is not someone you want to be in a relationship with. He is clearly okay with cheating on his actual girlfriend, and now he's trying to get with you as some kind of like supplemental of some kind or something like that. I mean, I'm kind of not surprised about why this guy's relationship is falling apart with his girlfriend. Like, look at the way he treats her. He goes off into a foreign country and then sleeps around with another woman just to try and have some kind of fun. And worst of all, he doesn't even feel bad about it. If this guy was a good boyfriend, he would have been like, wow, I messed up and I shouldn't do that ever again. Like, his behavior is so unacceptable, it's seriously not even funny. So sure, you feel bad about helping this guy cheat on his girlfriend, but at least you can end it there if you really wanted to. I know if I was in your shoes, I would cut this guy off immediately and be like, no, I'm not gonna be around this guy. I'm not even gonna entertain talking to this guy. Like, his rationale is insane. So truly, if I was in your shoes, I would move along and not allow anyone to try and make me a side option. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Today, I found out that my friend got fired from our job simply because she was my friend. And I am now completely stunned and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I want to say that every name in this story is gonna be fake. During my time at my current job, I've met a girl whose name will be Deanna. She was branded as the champion of the company and was kind of well liked amongst everyone at work. When me and my work team were seated on specific places, I found an empty seat by chance. Since nobody was using it at all, I went ahead and sat down to start my computer and get working. And as a matter of luck, I was sitting next to Deanna. Her part of the job was to check the metrics among the peers and bring support to whoever needed it. At first, we never interacted because I was kind of unengaged with meeting new people. But one day, I was changing my profile picture on Slack, as we were allowed to use whatever names and pictures we wanted, as long as we kept it safe for work, and Deanna spotted me switching to a SpongeBob picture, and then cracked a reference to the Nature Pants episode, and I turned around and she was looking at me with joy. We ended up talking nonstop about SpongeBob, and even ended up singing that Rip Pants song. At this point, we've hit it off, and while we would do our respective jobs, we would chit-chat and roll on the floor laughing at our nonsense. Time had passed and we became really close workmates, with Deanna often mentoring me to grow in the ranks of this job. At this point, I'm currently a floor support thanks to her, but suddenly Deanna went missing for several weeks, no trace of her, and when I tried contacting her, I didn't get a response either. Fast forward to February of this year, and we had all our team shuffled on orders from the clients because there was a lot of personal changes, and as a result, I would no longer sit beside her. After weeks of not showing up, she finally came back, but her personality took a turn. She was moody and felt like a shell of what used to be my best work pal. We distanced somewhat, although I still gave her my support if she needed anything. Deanna nodded and we went our separate ways to continue doing our job. Skip to March and I was taking a cigarette break. It was at this point when I was making my way back to the office, and Deanna met me directly back with her cheerful attitude, revealing that she was accepted to work somewhere else, and hugged me in a fit of joy. I couldn't help but feel happiness and sadness that she was going somewhere better, and that she would leave all of us behind. So it goes without saying that this was her 2 weeks notice, and eventually Deanna did leave. Fast forward again the last 2 weeks, and I was doing my work as per usual and supervising my team until I heard some gossip related to Deanna. I was a bit shocked to hear that my pal was dismissed instead of quitting, and that's when I chose to investigate further on the matter. Then, during one of our days off, I met with another one of my workmates. We'll call her Kelly. So far, she is the one who knows all the gossip within the office. Kelly revealed to me that Deanna indeed was fired. What happened on the spot left me dumbfounded at the time. It turns out that the manager demoted her to a regular agent after finding out that me and Deanna were hanging out together. She wasn't having it, and after falling out with him, Deanna attempted to reason with the manager, but he stated that on the orders of the client, she and several other agents will be laid off at the end of March. At that point, she took several weeks of vacation and returned for her final 2 weeks. To this day, we have remained good friends, and on our most recent hangouts for Halloween, Deanna revealed to me that she already sued the company for illegal termination. Now, I'm telling you this story during my lunch break because a couple of hours ago, a new manager was announced, and yes, the previous manager absolutely was fired, so I'm assuming that Deanna won her dispute in some kind of way. Wow, what an awful reason to let somebody go. Here you have a good work friend who's like there for you and takes takes care of you, they're mentoring you and helping you grow in the company, and then suddenly some jerk comes along and says, no, you're not allowed to have fun. Like seriously, what is the problem with enjoying yourself at work? It seems like people who suck at their job, or who are just managers who just hate having fun, they are the ones who have a problem with other people enjoying themselves. Like seriously, just get off people's backs. There's no reason Deanna and the original poster can't enjoy their time together. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were still getting their work done and they were being productive. But at the same time, they were just choosing to be good friends. Like seriously, what's wrong with that? And on top of that, it is so cool to see that Deanna sued this company and won. Like it really goes to show you, if you're gonna fire somebody, it's gotta be for legitimate reasons, and not just because you don't like them or don't like the fact that they have a friend at work that isn't you. Like what a petty and weird reason to make someone leave their job. So good for Deanna for not only taking all that vacation time off, but also for getting back at this awful workplace. Because you know what? These people sound absolutely awful, and neither she nor the original poster deserve to go through all that turmoil. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.